Welcome to Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup. I'm your host, Jason Bland, and tonight we have friend, extraordinary host himself, Josh Turner, joining us tonight from Paranormal Round Table. It's been a while since we've had him on. He's called in the show here and there. Josh is a very good friend and an incredible host. You want somebody to tell your paranormal experience for you? This is your guy. He's so captivating. I could never tell somebody's story the way he does, and it's incredible. And he has plenty of his own tales to tell, personal encounters that'll blow your mind. That's Josh Turner, man. He's a walking legend, in my opinion. Yeah, you can never be bored listening to him. Ever, on any topic. He can talk your ear off on any topic, and you're going to be completely interested and captivated the whole time. And I don't know what we should get into tonight. I have some stuff. I definitely want to talk about werewolves. I've had a big interest in dogman werewolves, and man, if there's anybody to talk to, it's Josh Turner from Paranormal Round Table. Of course, we got a lot of weird to get to in the World Wide Web of Weird, and we will open up the phone lines later in the show. So we better get rolling into it. Got a big show tonight, so let's go ahead and get on into it. Welcome to another night of Paranormal Soup. As I said before, I'm your host, Jason Bland. Joining me, as always, is my beautiful co-host, Jamie D. How you doing tonight, Jamie?
I'm doing well, thank you.
You're hanging in there. We do have a sick kitty situation with Jamie, so if you have to go, Jamie, just go. If you got to deal with a sick kitty, I definitely want to make sure we take care of that. I had my own sick kitty a couple days ago, but she's on the mend, so totally understand if you have to go. Josh Turner just got done doing his show. We had our World Wide Web of Weird. I think he'll be joining us after the World Wide Web of Weird, and then later in the night we will open up phone lines. But speaking of, how many times can I say the World Wide Web of Weird? Let's do it again. Let's go ahead and roll into the World Wide Web of Weird. Tonight on the World Wide Web Weird, I find this very fitting after watching Paranormal Round Table tonight. Josh Turner, we were talking about a ghost clown. Yes, a serious, really creepy experience somebody had with a ghost clown. Several people actually witnessing a ghost clown. How more terrifying. Of course, I've been saying it's Halloween season, and last week I said we're going to have more creepy ghost sightings, or not ghost sightings, of course those too, but clown sightings. It happens every Halloween, and here we go. We got this one. Hey, we got creepy clowns menace visitors to British Park. For those listening on the Paranormal Soup radio network on the Talkstream Live Paranormal Radio app, we are a webcast that streams out live to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. But if you want to listen, I'll narrate as best as possible. I don't think we have Rob tonight, so I'm going to get this up here on my own. Of course, I'm already hitting the wrong buttons for the share screen. I don't think I have any videos. I cut a video out of a ghost kid. I'm like, dude, it's homeless people in a shopping mall. I exchanged it out for another story in a park in Britain. That's kind of continuing. We'll get to that. Get ahead of myself. Hold on.
Rob has a really big gig tonight.
That's what I thought. Yeah, that's what it was. Okay. So
He's
you get to me to do. You
it.
get me to do the horrible video transitions here. Or yeah, here we go. All right, hold on. Let me. I don't even have it ready. I'm just not ready tonight. That's not the right folder. Wow, I am really out of my game. Here we go.
Disappeared for me last Wednesday, so I had to try to remember everything from my end.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, I saw that. I'm like, oh no.
When he just lost it all.
Yeah. Well. Well, here we go. Creepy clowns, my wife's favorite, right? No, not at all. Like I said, she makes me keep my cover of It turned around. I got this from Coast to Coast AM. This article is just shorter. And so visitors to a British park have reason to be on edge following a series of reported encounters with a group of creepy clowns who delight in frightening, unsuspecting individuals. The latest case of Harlequins up to no good has reportedly been unfolding in the community of Fleetwood for the past 3 weeks. Specifically, the scene of the strange incident is in the town of Memorial Park, where the clowns have seemingly taken up residence near the side duck pond. Every weekend since then, end of September, the troublemakers have appeared shortly after dusk with sinister agenda. Those unfortunate enough to have crossed paths with the clowns reported the pranksters popping up out of bushes, eerily sneaking up behind them, or perhaps more frightening of all, persuading them as they walk along the park trails. While it's uncertain who would be behind this spate of sightings, given that they only occur on weekend evenings, it's probably a safe bet that the mischievous teenagers are to blame. While local authorities have yet to acknowledge the Harlequins haunting the park, those behind the scare tactics would probably be wise to quit while they are ahead, since the time and location of their next appearance are rather predictable, and one can only imagine who might be waiting for them next weekend. You know, don't pull that stuff in America, man. You're going to get shot. In England, they don't. None of those people carry guns. I guess you can get away with that. Teenagers there dressing as clowns, scaring people, because probably what is going on here. You do that in America, you might get shot. I'm just saying. I mean, there's plenty of people just put a bullet in you, be done. They're not going to mess with a creepy clown.
Ask later.
What are you saying?
Shoot first, ask later.
Yeah, basically, that's American way, right? When it comes to clowns, at least, very stupid. I would not recommend dressing up as a clown to scare people. I don't know why people get into this stuff. But I told you, it's every Halloween season now. It just gets worse and worse until somebody's going to get hurt. There actually have people already been hurt. I think we've covered that.
They had legit chainsaws at one time.
Yeah. I'm just saying, man, like, people are brave to go out there and prank people like that. You're pretty brave and stupid. All right, so this came up in my feed today, and we've been covering, it seems like Canuck Chase is just on fire for weird stuff happening. And this is another one. There's been articles from other people, but lately last two have been from Birmingham Live, so maybe they're just getting some clickbait here. But they've been getting some encounters here. Bat watcher stopped in his tracks by monster with thick black fur at Canuck Chase. What was it last week did we have? We had a man see like a, was that one where you had like a dogman-like encounter in Canuck Chase was last week. And then there was another one where a week before, I don't think it was like a dogman thing. I'd have to look at it. So bat enthusiasts allegedly stumbled upon a monster that stopped him dead in his tracks while walking through Canuck Chase. The man, known only as Ralph claimed he had been intently listening for the telltale squeaks of a colony when something huge and definitely not human appeared within the woodland. Ralph said he had gone to Castle Ring at around 9 p.m. on September 3rd in search of the nocturnal mammals when something caught his eye. I couldn't really make out what it was to begin with, he said, but it looked huge. Huge. He continued along the footpath towards the figure, but said his jaw almost hit the floor when it came into focus. Ralph recalled the scene was definitely not human. It was at least 10 feet tall and seemed to have a head of a pig. Oh, that's right. This is the Pigman. This is the infamous Pigman. That's right. I forgot. I just added this right before the show. But its body was covered in thick black fur. Ralph continued, I stopped dead in my tracks, completely unable to move as I watched it step closer and closer towards me. When I was about 20 feet away from me, my instincts kicked in. I started running in the opposite direction, back towards the car park. I only taken a few steps when I looked back over my shoulder to see if the monster was following, but it had just vanished into thin air. I stopped running and caught my breath for a moment before heading back to the car. It was honestly the scariest thing that had ever happened to me, and I don't think I'll be going for a walk around Castle Ring on my own night again for quite some time. When Ralph got home and told his wife, she told him there had been other stories relating to the so-called Pigman. Ralph then got in touch with Lee Brickley, author of A Ghost Hunter's Guide to Canuck Chase, everything you need to know about England's strangest forests, and told him about what he saw. Lee told Birmingham Light he met Ralph at the Royal Oak Pub in Canuck a couple days later and said the sighting was typical of what others have previously reported. He said the Pigman is one of the most commonly seen paranormal entities known to reside in Canuck Chase. Some say he's been in the area since the 1940s. Again, shapeshifter, creature, Pigman. The descriptions, as I was telling it, he sounds like you're about to get a dogman, but he has the head of a pig. What is that? What are people encountering? That is a paranormal playground I want to go visit if I got to go overseas. It's like we have a story every week lately there.
For sure. It makes me think of that Seinfeld episode.
Which episode?
The Seinfeld episode with the pig man.
I just think of man, bear, pig. It's man, bear, pig. That's what I think of man, bear, pig. But I'm serious. I believe this guy's encountered her. I mean, this has been going on a long time. You didn't even know about it. All right, let's move on. All right, what do we got next? An unusual paranormal abuse case in Spain involved psychic medium. That's an unexplained mystery article I'm going to read because it's shorter, but the original article from the Olive Press. Police in Spain investigate bizarre case of paranormal abuse after a woman claimed her ex-boyfriend hired a medium to scare her. The victim of an ex-boyfriend has reportedly a fake paranormal activity and has even hired a medium to scare her. In an unusual case out of Valencia, Spain, this week, police have been investigating claims that a woman's former partner had resorted to what he has been described as paranormal abuse. According to the reports, the 41-year-old woman had been suffering at the hands of her ex-partner, who had went as far as to hire a psychic medium solely to frighten her. One incident, she witnessed a painting in her house levitating in air above a table before falling back down, while in another, she heard distinct footsteps behind the wall, and her ex-partner had claimed that he had experienced some sort of vision of her recently deceased father. She was told that her father's ghost had warned that if she had left her partner, she would die. The alleged phenomenon also included objects being moved and glass bus bursting into pieces. The woman even returned home one day to find that her house had been ransacked. The case is quite unusual. It's not all common to hear someone using fake paranormal activity in order to harass and intimidate someone, especially not in this context. Fortunately for the woman, however, her ordeal came to end when her ex-partner was arrested by police for domestic violence and restraining order was taken out, forbidding him from going near her. What I find interesting about this story is, but the things described, I don't know, was that all faked? Did he, he hired a psychic medium. What was the psychic medium for? What, to curse her? It seems like there's context left out. Was she being harassed spiritually? They say fake paranormal abuse, but was he faking levitating? What is this said here? It was being levitated here. The painting in her house was levitating above a table. Did he fake that? You hear people get cursed, and activity starts up in their home. It is a very common thing through the ages, and it still happens to people. I mean, this guy obviously was a
What
stalker,
happens
crazy.
to them?
I don't know. I think you have to sell your soul to get that kind of mojo on your ex, though. I don't think he's going to have a good time. He obviously isn't. He got arrested. But, you know, some people, they think they love somebody. They just want to control somebody, and those are the worst. And if you love somebody, you don't put black curses on them and, you know.
No, take away their free will.
Yeah, you know, just saying. All right, moving on. Where am I? Oh, we got a Sasquatch sighting by a truck driver. That's what's next. Illinois truck driver reports unsettling suspected Sasquatch sighting. Original article from Journal Star. I'm going to read Tim Bindles from Coast to Coast because it's shorter. An Illinois truck driver says that he was left unsettled after a recent incident where he drove past a sizable hair-covered bipedal creature that some believed to have been Bigfoot. According to local media report, the suspected Sasquatch sighting occurred on the morning of October 5th as Gary Rutherford Jr. was cruising down the highway in Peoria County. A driver for a truck company contracted by the U.S. Postal Service, his normal routine route took a wondrous turn, when he noticed something unusual ahead of him on the side of the road. I didn't process the thing until it was right up on it, he called. I did a double take, and it was standing on two legs, brown fur. While the encounter was incredibly brief, Rutherford said there was a particularly chilling moment in which he and the creature looked at each other, and he noted the beast seemed to sport orange, yellowish, glowing eyes. Since the two were face-to-face and he was sitting high up in his 24-foot truck, the astounded driver estimated the thing had to be 8 feet tall. In true post office fashion, Rutherford commendably continued his route without stopping to get a further look at the curious creature. That said, the strange sighting stuck with him so much that he later went back to the spot to look for evidence of what he had witnessed, though there was nothing there to be found. The eerie experience was so profoundly unsettling, Rutherford said he could not stop thinking of the strange event. Eventually, he felt compelled to report the incident to the Bigfoot Field Research Organization, which investigated the encounter and found that it was likely a genuine Sasquatch sighting. I'm not calling it Bigfoot, Rutherford stressed. The investigators have concluded that that's what it was. I accept that. Though the truck driver may never be so certain as to what exactly he saw on the side of the road, the encounter has proven to be unforgettable. All I know is it scared the absolute hell out of me. I can't get it out of my mind, he mused. I replay it over and over every day. And that's very common for people that witness something that's out of their perception, out of their, their normal daily life routine of things they see. They see something that they don't ever believed in. It leaves an imprint in your mind. You can forget a lot of other things related to it and around it, but the image of what you saw, I have several of my own, stay scarred on your mind.
It's almost like a PTSD.
Well, the first thing one of my earliest childhood memories is a green floating head. That was imprinted on my mind, this image in the face and the green head. I was only 4 or 5 years old. It's never left me. I can see it now in my mind. It scared the living heck out of me at 4 or 5 years old that I was, These things, when they're terrifying enough, or just miraculous enough, they leave an imprint in your mind. Your brain's like, yep, I'm saving that one. Like putting the photo book on that one. Mark it as terrifying nightmares to haunt me the rest of my life. Thanks. Could that have been a Dogman encounter, though? Really, he seemed to get transfixed on the eyes, which were glowing. Which Bigfoot.
Yeah, that's what caught me.
I don't know. It's Illinois, Peoria. There's Bigfoot sightings there too, and Dogmen. I don't know. All right, let's move on before we run out of time.
Yellow eye type sightings lately.
Yeah, Bigfoot and Dogman both have like the glowing eyes. Not always for Bigfoot either, but I think a lot for Dogman. All right.
But lately, I'm just hearing more.
Yeah. Well, Heather, if you're listening tonight, you should really. That called in about her Dogman sighting a few weeks ago. Tonight, we have lines open. If you're listening tonight, you can call in. I'd love for you to tell your story to Josh Turner from Paranormal Round Table. I would love for him to hear it. All right, we got to move on, though. We're going to run out of time. I already knew it. All right. Oh, let me bring Josh in here if he's ready. He might be getting set up, but I'm going to add him in anyways. How you doing, Josh?
Hey, how's it going?
How's it going, man? We're just going over some weird news, and we're going to go to break, and we'll start our talk. Our talk. All right. So where was I? I gotta find the right thing. This is what I need you, Rob. All right. We are on to Idaho Congressman candidate. You know, Bigfoot always every time it's got to get in politics, man. Bigfoot, what's wrong with you? Getting congressmen to support you. Idaho Congressman champions Bigfoot, or candidate for Congress. Befitting what is allegedly a weird election season, an Idaho congressional candidate has made celebrating Bigfoot one of the centerpieces of his campaign. According to a local media report, the surprising Sasquatch support comes from Charles Stewart, or Chandler, sorry, not Charles, Chandler Stewart Hadraba, did you see his name? He's a challenging incumbent Sonia Galaviz for a seat in the State House of Representatives, along with the standard issue one might expect to see on his platform, such as judicial reform and taxes. The candidates included championing the famed cryptid as possible boon for the state. I really want to make Idaho #1 for Bigfoot tourism. This is a creative way to have our rural communities and remote areas benefit more from tourism in such a great state. Specifically, the candidate calls for the cryptid to be recognized as a state animal of Idaho. Beyond that, he envisions drawing Sasquatch-seeking visitors to the area by issuing hunting license that would presumably be similar to Bigfoot bounty. No. Concept bandied about by Oklahoma politician back in 2021. No, let's not do this. As yet, it would seem that his opponent has yet to respond to the Sasquatch-specific part of his platform, though hopefully it comes up with two candidates have a debate on the election. Let's debate if we should shoot and kill Bigfoot to prove that Bigfoot exists, because that's what this guy's talking about doing. Please, no. Seriously. This is why we don't let politicians come up with these kind of ideas. And somebody's going to get hurt. Some poor guy in a ghillie suit. Let's not do this. All right, we're going to move on, though. We're going to run out of time. All right, next up. Talk about, King Philip, whatever, his interest and his son's interest. King Charles, reptilian or not, has maybe flown a prototype UFO in Canada, claims one witness. I mean, if he's a reptilian, I think he has his own ride, right? King Charles once piloted a prototype UFO in Canada, driver claims. Did King Charles once pilot a UFO? It might sound bizarre, but according to Mark Christopher Lee, director of the new documentary, The King of UFOs, the story does actually have some merit. The original claim came courtesy of Canadian driver Dan Costello, who maintained that he had seen Charles, who was still Prince of Wales at the time, controlling a strange disc-shaped craft of some kind alongside two other pilots at Sandy Point, Nova Scotia. The object, which was clearly some sort of prototype, was described as a UFO-esque and was said to have produced a bluish iconic flame which left the ground singed underneath it. Charles had reportedly been invited to pilot the vehicle, which is part of something called Project Serpico, while serving in the Royal Navy as a helicopter pilot. The craft had dual rotor blades like a helicopter, but it would also just sit and hover in the sky, with blades not on and off, with the sound of propulsion just a faint crackle electromagnetism. I don't think it was extraterrestrial, no, it wasn't. But the technology developed by Nikola Tesla, no. And who had a facility here, and now this was being just used by the U.S., Canadian, British military. I think he just got a ride in one of those. They made several different prototypes of kind of like flying saucer vehicle like things that they hover off the ground, which is wind turbines. I don't think he was getting to fly around anything special. He's got that locked away in his cave with his reptilian family gold and all that stuff, right? He looks like a reptilian though, man. Look at him. That teeth. What is it with the teeth? He looks like he's gonna bite your head off in this picture. I don't know. Sadly, he has cancer, though. That is sad news. So. Okay. Enough about the Royals. Last up, we've talked about this story before, but now it's hitting the headlines because now more information's come out. Mysterious drones swarmed high-security Air Force bases for 17 days, but baffled Pentagon officials don't know where they are coming from or how to stop them. I don't have time to read this whole article, but back in December 2023, Langley Air Force Base in East Virginia were surrounded by 17 of these things. And there was different versions of drones that they had. They're definitely not UFOs. And they're definitely not your normal commercial drones, is the gist of it. They couldn't even identify the radio signal being used to pilot these things. So we're talking, our enemies, Probably. Previously, we covered these same kind of drones being flown over U.S. nuclear installations. Not missile installations, nuclear power plants. We had the spy balloons, and we had all this. Ever feel like we're being ready, prepped, or set up for something here? You know? We can't stop the drones. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of what happened with the disclosure movement were people in the DoD are saying, hey, we have a major problem with air incursions into our space from drones now. And that started a little fire in the Pentagon, but that fire also said, well, we also have other things in the sky we don't think are drones, we don't know what they are, and that started that whole snowball effect. Because we have a major actual airspace problem, as if you haven't realized, after the last 4 or 5 years of us shooting down spy balloons and that we're left to just hover over military installations and get plenty of pictures before we shot them down, right? So we're going to see more of these stories, sadly, I think, and more of this is going to come out. The ones that scare me the most is the ones that were not the nuclear or not the military installations, but the ones that hovered around nuclear power plants. Take those out, take those down, do something to those, and they go into meltdown, we're in big trouble. We have little nuclear reactors all over this country that could be big trouble for us if somebody wants to mess with them. So, a bit scary, but I'm sure they'll blame Iran or some other country for this too. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if it's another country. I don't know if it's Russia, Iran, China. Take your enemy, pick whoever they want to go to war with. I'm sure they'll blame. But that's it for the World Wide Web of Weird. Tonight's guest, Josh Turner, is going to be joining us. And we were going to talk about all things strange, weird, and cryptid. And I really enjoyed the clown ghost story tonight. That was... pretty messed up.
Yeah.
So more of that kind of weirdness when we come back, and we will open up the phone lines later in the show for you to call in and join this conversation. We're getting close to Halloween, guys. Yes, next week will be our Halloween show with Katrina Cooper, spiritual medium, as tradition. No roadie speak can't join us this year, but we'll have Katrina and spirit boxes and Katrina's readings, psychic games, all the fun stuff that we usually do for the Halloween show. And tonight, I thought about bringing you on, Josh, for the Halloween show, but I'm like, man, we need our own time to talk. We need like a whole time. So that's why I thank you so much for last minute coming on for this as a guest tonight. He just got done with the Paranormal Round Table, so I won't keep you too late. If you get too tired, let me know. But we're going to go to commercial break, and we'll be right back.
You were brought here for one purpose, necromancy.
A ceremony dating back to the pre-Christian era. It's the art of reviving the dead. It requires involvement with evil spirits by the person performing the act.
The devil god brings life to the dead.
No, please. No, please, no.
And death to the living. Necromancy. Starring Orson Welles and Pamela Franklin. From Cinerama releasing. In color, rated PG, parental guidance suggested.
If you are interested in discovering the truth about the paranormal and want to hear from leading researchers in the field, join Justin Brown on his 3 weekly shows named My Paranormal Soapbox, Necromancer Live Show, and the Supernatural Symposium, live on Facebook, YouTube, and InterfaceDeath.net.
He is conducting an experiment into the combined effects of sensory deprivation and hallucinatory drugs. The subject of the experiment is himself, and the experiment is out of control. Can Ken Russell's Altered States, a film that must not be missed, is in the West End now. Altered States, Certificate X.
Hello, I am Fernando Martinez. I think by now you know I am an emotional kind of guy. People stop me in the street and say, Fernando, what the hell is wrong with me? Silk shirt, hairy chest, enough aftershave to drown a household pet, but I still cannot get a woman. I tell them you are an ignorant fool. Without a symbol of power and fertility around your neck, what kind of woman is going to respect you? That is why I have teamed up with Medallion Man, the shop for medallion needs. Medallion Man caters to all levels of masculinity. For the strong, silent type, a medallion the size of a hubcap will say everything that needs to be said. Even singing medallions for the Casanova, who knows music is the food of love. Model trains, dollhouses, diapers, whatever your interest, we've got a medallion for you. Don't forget, every woman knows if you can't support a medallion, you can't support a family.
This is the sound of a space clock aboard a U.S. satellite 180 miles above the Earth. No one winds up this timepiece. It's powered by a tiny battery, a battery that delivers power for years without replacement. Now the same type of battery, the Duracell battery, can bring new reliability and long life to your battery-operated equipment. Radios, cameras, toys, all run far longer. Duracell batteries, the long-distance power cells, outlast any ordinary battery. The same type of battery that keeps space clocks running for years can bring long life to anything powered by batteries. Dura, as in durable. Cell, as in power cell. The Duracell battery, made by Mallory.
Switch to DCS ranging.
240, nominal to profile.
We're in the pipe. 5 by 5.
Tonight on Paranormal Soup, our guest is Josh Turner, host of Paranormal Round Table. I think a lot of you here probably know who Paranormal Round Table is because I think Josh brought a bunch of you over from his show that he was on, just got off of. And man, just go check out. If you are not familiar with Paranormal Round Table, I mean, just type it into YouTube. You'll find the channel and a plethora of episodes and stories from people who've witnessed the strange, unusual. As Josh describes his channel, to share experiences with the supernatural, cryptids, demonic, and everything in between. And boy, does he do. He does it so well. He will keep you fascinated. I always thought about trying to do that. Have people email me, tell your stories and read it. You heard me on the World Wide Web of Weird. I am awful. I am not a great narrator. Josh is. Boy, he can really get you into the story and make you feel it. That's what I love about him. And he's so super knowledgeable. Way beyond me. So I think we got a lot to talk about tonight, and we will let you guys talk too. We will open up the phone lines late in the next hour. Just wait till that next commercial break. We'll let you call in then. Join this conversation. I want to hear paranormal experiences. I'm so jealous. Josh gets so many amazing stories because he's so known for, his experiences, his own incredible experiences. So there's a lot to talk about tonight. I want you to join the conversation later. Let's go ahead and get into the show. Josh, it's an honor to have you back on the show. Thank you so much for doing this last minute. I didn't have a guest tonight, and you filled in a very busy time for you because I know you just are you in a new location? You just moved?
Yeah, I'm in the middle of being in 3 different places.
Oh
so
my God.
It sounds kind of crazy, but I don't really want to get it because I do have people who, for whatever reason, don't like me because I say things that they don't like because it hurts their feelings because they have a paradigm, and then if you shatter that, then they go to pieces with it. So a lot of people are defined by their beliefs in a way that they don't know how to change with the evidence. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think that can apply to a lot of things in life
Yeah.
besides the
But it just seems
paranormal.
like in this sort of field, um, that's a big problem for me because one of the things that has been we can start. We'll just if you have any questions to start off, I could just start like this.
No, I'm not. You go ahead. You're
Okay.
good.
And I like the shirt, by the way. And so,
Let's go to the green
what
screen,
happened
right?
to you, Jamie? You see your hand. What happened?
Oh, I had a little
Overhand,
blow.
yeah.
You had to punch somebody?
Yeah.
Giving you too much lip?
Yeah.
So, I just, one of the things that I do, and I have done in this field is try to unite people with the conferences and the books and things like that. And interviewing a plethora of people from all the different, facets of the unknown. People think of paranormal and they automatically go, oh, well, it's like ghosts. Well, no, that's a very base level. Cryptids is one of my big, but I don't think that these things are all cryptids. I think there's some
Right.
sort of like something else. And what we think is cryptids, I don't know that they're necessarily cryptids. I believe that they're like sub-nature. And what I mean by that is they are metaphysical in a way that they can move in and out of the spiritual and physical. That's why the story tonight about the clown, we don't know what that is. And then the weird creature, like you hit the nail on the head early on, Jason. You're a veteran, so you were like succubus, and I was like, "Dang, you already figured it out."
Call that out, right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, I mean, it is. That's what it is. I mean,
Yeah.
but also the fact that it was running around in the woods, and people would say, "Well, those are two different things." No, because it was identical. That's the same thing. It's just stalking him, and so one of the things that you have to look at when it comes to this field is you have to be involved in all of the different facets, whether it's the paranormal as in ghosts, paranormal cryptids, and then of course alien abduction. And I think that those are the big three. Now I think there's
Right.
other little sub, whatever that go through there, and but I think for the most part those are the ones you have to focus on. So I catch flack from these different people because I talk about all these different things. One of the things I talk about a lot too is theology and multiple religions, and people get really upset. I have people who get very offended. Most recently, this is weird. This guy, he's actually Hindu, and we were cool up until recently. I think we still are, but he started messaging me, and he says, "You really need to stick with what you know about Hinduism because you're on the money about what you've been saying." But then you veer off into Buddhism, Christianity, and these other religions. And I said, look, I'm not Hindu. I just say that there's a lot of parallels between them and Christianity, and people lose their freaking minds.
Many doors
So I don't think
Dharma.
he's mad at me, but he's just kind of like, well, he believes that I was on the right track until I said that. And of course, the Christians are really, they get offended very easily. And they start saying, well, he worships space aliens. Well, that is the most ridiculous thing ever. I don't worship space aliens. I just said that there was another consciousness here that could have been responsible for seeding us. And that is a very commonly held belief in a lot of the ancient alien circles, people like that. But that's not my absolute be all end all belief. But they took it and ran with it and decided that that would be their rallying point, the spear point, if you will, to attack. And that's something that when I had L.A. Marzulli on, we talked in a two-part episodes. But he gets attacked a lot by people who should be his base. But that's not the case. They get very upset. And you look at what's going on with Graham Hancock. People just constantly challenging him and attacking him and blah, 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 blah. And if you say to people that there was a time before what we know of as the Bible, they get real worked up. And I've told people before, and they get really upset when I tell them that actually the book of Job predates Genesis. And they're like, well, how can that be? And it's also an Arabic book. It's not Hebrew. So a lot of people have this paradigm that they believe that everything began with the Hebrew Bible, when actually the Tanakh, which is the original version of the Bible, the Hebrew Bible, which is the Jewish, oral Torah that's been, put into a book, it doesn't match up with the Old Testament very well. It's
No.
not really. So it is a Christianized, Christianized canon that they took from the Council of Nicaea, which was the Catholic Church, and they created a Bible. And now you have all these people that are Protestant, but they're still following that same doctrine. So if somebody gave you a book and it had 12 pages in it, well, you can sit there and say, guess what? That is the absolute word of God. And then everything for the next 2,000, 2,500 years, whatever it's been, 2,600 years, that is it. That's the absolute word of God. There's nothing beyond that. But you're not realizing that the reason it's only got 12 pages in it is because 1,000 pages were ripped out. And so everything going forward was completely, wrong because it was annihilated.
It's like Mel Brooks' History of the World, where he has like, we have the 15, we have the 10 commandments.
It's really, and when you say that, then they attack from every angle because they can't wrap their mind around what is reality. And I tell people the nature of reality is completely different than what we think it is. Like, we are so far off base. When you get people's stories, and we're going to talk about some things tonight, is you'll get these encounters that people will say, hey, look, I saw the grid. One guy, he didn't tell me this. He's a Filipino friend of mine. I've talked about him on the show before. He got intoxicated at his own birthday party, and he literally, I think he died. He got to the hospital, and he was barely alive. But he was wandering around the hotel trying to find a way out. And his wife had told me that she was pretty sure he was deceased. Well, he saw this honeycomb pattern all over the hotel, and he was trying to find his way out, but none of the doors worked. And I've done research on this, work on this, where people have come to me and said that they see this city that they go to, and it's like always dark. We call it the city of night because I don't know what to call it. My wife has been there. I've been there. In fact, Gary, that's my friend Scorpion. He's actually in the chat. He has been there multiple times, and we've had dreams where we've interacted, and we can tell each other the dream. And that's happened with me and multiple people. And so how do you explain these things? Well, the nature of reality is not what we think it is. It just is not. And people can scream it till their ears bleed. It doesn't make it true what they're saying. And so I have a real issue with let's just focus on Bigfoot for a minute, just Bigfoot. They take apart the reports and they shelve them, they scrap them that do not fit a narrative of a physical monkey man running around in the woods. And so I have spoken to one of the leaders, or the guy and he had a show, okay? And he had told me that I needed to give him my Bigfoot. He's being snarky. And I said, I didn't have a Bigfoot encounter. He says, well, that's what it sounds like. I was like, that's not what it is. It was something else, because he said he didn't believe in dogmen. And so all I know in my heart that if I would have given him anything, it would have been ammunition to just try to tear me apart and say that this wasn't it, blah, blah, blah. Well, this has happened in the ghost community with these gatekeepers. It's happened in the UFO community with the gatekeepers, and it's happening in the cryptid / Bigfoot field. And these people will guard and fight with their lives because they make money. That's all it is. It really, I figured it out. It just boils down to making money.
It's no different than what you find in archaeology. Mm-hmm. Why archaeology universities have, looked at Graham Hancock and ignored those kind of people, journalists and people that are like, hey, explain this, and they don't look at these things. They don't even research it because they don't want to lose their funding. This is the narrative that's been preached for 100 years or more in archaeology and anthropology. People have done dissertations and papers and books and based their whole careers on things that now we know are probably not right. They don't want to give that up there either. It's no different.
Yeah. And we as a people have to be strong enough, smart enough, and I'm going to say this, moral enough to change with the evidence. And the evidence is pointing us in another direction. Now, sadly, these people choose to not believe these people's stories because it doesn't benefit their narrative. I've had lots of people come to me and say, look, I went to this particular podcaster, YouTuber, author, researcher, and they slammed me and told me that I was crazy. In fact, one guy who I actually consider him a friend, I'm not going to rat him out, whatever, but he told one lady she was full of BS, like, using the expletives. And I was like, dang. And I would think that would be completely out of character for that person. But no, that's when I talked to him, he said, yeah, because I think she is. And I was like, yeah, but by your own admission, there have been stories that have come out of that area where he was researching, and they were very bizarre, balls of light, things like that. And you're just like, how can you discount that? Well, he said, well, maybe there are, maybe there aren't, but they're not connected. So what are the odds that we're going to have balls of light and UFOs and people see specters and things in this same swamp area, and then you're going to see Bigfoot? Like, what are the odds? Like that, if it's all...
They're not connected. That's nothing to see here, people. Move along. They're not connected at all.
Or Brady.
But no, not at all.
See here, people,
Move along. Move along.
So I can't, that's, and so I have been told more times than I can count to stay in my lane and stop rocking the boat, stop upsetting the apple cart, to the point where now there's like this little coalition, that's like, oh, we're going to stop this guy. You're not going to stop it. You're not going to stop it because it's progress. And even if they manage to destroy me, it doesn't matter. There's 1,000 other people like me. I'm not a unicorn, who are understanding this. Now, maybe they're not as well spoken, not as well researched or something, but they're going to get there. And I think that what we're doing at PRT, and this may sound a little bit, arrogant, maybe. I'm not trying to be. I definitely don't want to be hubris, but I think we're going to keep pushing the envelope. And I think my listeners, which we call the paratroopers, I think that they're going to be the actual vanguard that's going to take us to the next level, because there's so many people now that are asking hard questions. And the people who are trying to keep us from these hard questions are going to be punched aside, and the people that have those questions are going to have to answer them. And I think that all it takes is like a united front, which is what I was trying to do with the conferences. And of course, we got attacked vehemently after the conferences. I still say that some of that, because my friends in the UFO community came to me and they said, look, what you're going through now, they kind of looked at me as a cryptid researcher, author. And I said, look, I'm sick of getting attacked. And they said, well, get used to it, because even if you leave, because you've already said so much and done so much, they're not going to leave you alone. They're going to keep attacking, which they did. We quit for 5 weeks. It didn't help. I got attacked just as bad. It didn't slow down. It was just the same, just attack. And so I was telling my wife, I was like, this doesn't end. This, I can ignore it because I'm not on the show or whatever, but it doesn't end. The stalking, the cyber stalking, it doesn't stop. It doesn't go away. And I think some of these people are shills. And now my friends in the UFO community told me, look, you're going through in that field what we've been going through for 40 years. And now it's catching up, because, and some of these guys are like, look, we've known it's been connected for a long time, but these other fields are like, so when you think of the average Bigfoot guy, you're like, somebody who's a little bit country, I was raised out in the country. I had an accent until I was in my early teens, and then I had to learn to not have that because I got made fun of and got picked on in the inner city school. And so I changed the way I talk. I used to talk like this. That's how I talk, for real. It's a Southern accent, and people were like, why you talk like that? Well, that's how I was raised. And they were like, well, look the way you talk like a freaking, hillbilly. So I went to my dad, and my dad said, look, he told me, he says, there's things you got to realize. You're going to sound that way. If you sound that, he goes, I'm the only one in my family that doesn't sound like you. My dad told me that. And he says, if you keep talking like that, then nobody's going to respect you. They're not going to take you seriously. And I thought that was horrible that you have to be that way. But
yeah. He was teaching the truth. That's the sad thing. He's not lying, but it's just stupid humans.
And being
it makes you sound less educated or something.
Yeah, you don't articulate as well, and it makes you sound like you're kind of dumb, or you're like, whatever. And so one of the things that I learned too, and I posted this on my Facebook today, was something I came across. And I remember my dad telling me this, that no matter what you do, you have consequences. Even when you stand up for what is right, he said, are you going to be prepared to accept the consequences of that decision? So overwhelmingly, I said, yes, I will do this again and again, no matter how many times it hurts and how many times I get attacked. I'm not going to stop being honest and trying to do what is right. And these people can keep jumping up and down and screaming. It's not going to work because there are others like me who are coming out and telling the truth. And the truth to me is basically the perception of reality that people agree upon, right? But it's deeper than that because there are people who are bursting through that and they're getting to the actual center of the Tootsie Pop, as we said back in the 80s. They're getting there and they're like, this is where it's at. And they are starting to realize that they need to have this information. Why is it important that we talk about these different things? Because your whole paradigm is wrong. You've spent all this time sort of in this prison. One of the things I know, I have a pig. I have a pet pig.
Oh, my wife is so jealous if I tell her that. I don't know if I want to even tell her that because she's wanted a pet pig forever.
Well, they make good pets. He's a great little dude.
She tells me all the time.
Awesome. Yeah. They're like dogs.
Yeah. Well,
he is
better not
smarter
listen
than
to
our
this
dogs.
episode.
But he is so. Let me tell you guys, if we let him outside today for the first time, he was able to go out into the grass, and he was like, "What is this?" And so he came out, and he chewed up some of it. Then he went back, and he just stood there for like an hour because Truffles is so used to being not in the house. He's used to being in the house. He's not used to being he's just he poops in one spot. He's smart. So he doesn't want to go outside and be, because he's like, I don't know what this is, but it's so much better. He's got all this room to move around, but he's not doing it because he's been conditioned that I don't know what this is. I'm not going to take that step. I'm going to stay where I'm comfortable. And that's inside of his cage. He goes into his cage to go to sleep. So do the dogs. We don't kennel them unless we're leaving and we don't trust them because they're misbehaving or something, but we don't punish our animals like that. We don't hit them. We don't do anything.
Space.
Yeah, but they have been conditioned. They want to go and be inside of that kennel. And I always think, dude, this is so weird to me because I don't want to be. But the animals are so used to that. Like our rabbits, we'll let them out. They'll jump around, do what they do.
That's what I think about my cats a lot, too.
It's their bedroom, basically. Mm-hmm. That's what I told my kids about our dog, Kiki, because she'll go in her crate sometimes just to sleep. Mm-hmm. And, the gate open and she's not afraid of it. We don't put her in there to punish her or anything like that. Sometimes we've had to put her in there because she's too excited, but she'll just go in there on her own because it's not usually a punishment. It's her bed. Of course, she wants to sleep in our beds every night.
So do ours.
Yeah.
So do ours.
I take my cats out back, but they're not, indoor. They're kind of outdoor with me supervising. And then they start to get antsy and kind of look up over the fence, and I'll tell them, no, you don't need to look up there. Stay down here. And then I feel so horrible because I feel like a dictator almost. Like I'm not letting them have the freedom to look over the fence. And I don't want someone doing that to me. So I have a hard time with that.
But the point you're making here is these people have put themselves in a mental cage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you feel like a
I
jailer.
see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it makes me feel like a jailer. Like I'm punishing them by doing that. And one of our dogs, well, two of them actually, they love to go ride. The other one doesn't because she gets car sick. But the other two, if I go outside, they try to run out behind me.
Oh, so does mine. Yep.
Yeah. And they want to get in the car and go. They look out the window and stuff. And even though we had a big place, it's like that was still their whole world. And then they could go to the backyard or whatever. But that's not a life, for an animal. And to me, and it was bumming me out. So yeah, we had to come up with a solution, and so we did. But I can't really talk about. My wife's like, don't tell anybody because, like I said, we're being stalked, so we can't do it.
Yeah, don't do that.
I personally don't give a crap about these people, but
But listen to your wife.
I'm going to respect her wishes and just do what she says. And also we have lawyers that are like, hey, let's just do this because it could come down to something. But I look at their life and I see these people and they do the same thing. They literally live in a prison that was created for them, and they're comfortable there. So they don't come out of it. They don't go, hey, maybe this is not correct. Maybe I should be trying to think of something more. But it's not until someone has an encounter with something that is obviously not of the world that we know that people really start to go, hey, maybe there's something wrong here. Now, it being Halloween, the time of like, whatever, scary stuff, I've been kind of dropping off some really, terrifying stories, whatever. Um, I do a lot of stories that catch my attention. And when you talk to the people, you really have to get deep because a lot of times they'll just give you the surface level.
Right.
And I see it all the time. I see people, not you guys, because you do a great job, but I've seen a lot of people who will interview people, and I'm going like, this is painful because if I'd be asking some serious questions, person, I would have already been prepared to get to that, what we need to get to. And they're just scratching the surface. And I know what they're doing. They're dancing around the actual phenomena. That's why the book, it was the Bigfoot phenomenon. The other one was werewolves and the dogman phenomenon, because it's a phenomenon. And you don't really know until you interview people and you give them the full Monty. Like, you can't just like, they'll start to talk about ghosts and Bigfoot and UFOs, whatever. Let them do it, because a lot of these people have had multiple experiences.
Yeah.
So instead of like them going, you go, hey, you know what? You've had UFO experience. Let me send you to a guy, my friend Christopher Jordan. Go talk to him, because he'll be the guy about UFOs. Oh, you have ghosts. Let me talk to my friends at Blondes and Booze. Let me give you, or let me send you to Jason, because that's their wheelhouse, whatever. That's not what we do. What I do is I said, tell me about that. And I try to figure it out. One of the cases I point to, people think, oh, it's a one-off. It's never really happened before. It's just gargoyle-looking thing. And I was given this first story back when I was doing shows on another guy's channel. I think it was like in 2007. I think it was 2016 was when I first got this story. And so I just stuck it in a file. I started creating files on the computer, just one-off. And I had put all of the stuff that I had in my journals into those files. And it gets kind of, unless Tony, my co, gets a hold of it, and he'll throw it anywhere. He'll be like, what is this? Like, he made one file that said mummy on there, and there was nothing in it. And I was like, what is this? No offense to Tony, but, so you're sitting there going like, you have a team of people that you work with. I know, because I have gnats everywhere, because my brother and Keem just, hey, man, let's drink monsters and let's leave them half drank all over the place. Gnats don't love that.
Don't drink Monster for one.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't drink that for one. And yeah, well, at least they might kill the gnats with that stuff. I don't know.
It'll make them super powerful for a little while, and then they die.
Gnats on speed.
Yeah, basically. So we had to have the bug zapper in here. We had to like do all this. And so, yeah. So what ended up happening is I was looking at this case, this gargoyle. I was like, well, I don't have anything to compare that to, so let me just throw it in this one-off file. And I just put on there gargoyle, because I don't know what it was. I know what it is. I get a story in like 2018, late 2018, and it matched to a T the description. But the thing is, the first one was a story that was out of Dayton, Ohio, outside of Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah.
The second one was from a Hispanic family that were not, they don't know these people. They're not even in the same age bracket. And they saw the same thing, almost identical. And they weren't from there. They were from Colorado, but they were in Alamogordo, New Mexico, visiting relatives. And they saw this thing. And what's interesting about it is not only did but there was something that was so much, how do you say it? Like, what are the words I'm trying to, like, it was so profound to me, and it was kind of like a turning point for me, like looking at threads. Look for the threads. Because,
yeah,
this thing had a chain on its neck. Now, do I think it was the same creature? Probably not, because that's 1,000 miles away, 15, whatever miles, 1,000, 1,500, whatever. So you're looking at something clear across the country. This thing did something very similar.
Did it have both instances have chains on the neck of the gargoyle?
Had a chain on its neck, yeah. And
both
so
instances? That's interesting.
Both. Since then, I picked up 3 more where people have said but one of them, he said he thought he was in Oklahoma. He wasn't for sure, but he also listened to the show, and he thought, well, maybe it was. And I have to take into account too, maybe he thought that because, he heard the show. But one of them happened in Haskell, Texas, from a childhood friend of mine. There was another story that I got. Didn't have it. I don't remember if it had a chain or not, but it had the same similar features. This weird dog-like head, the big bat-like wings. And you're looking at this and you're going like, okay, like I know this guy. I've known him since I was a kid. We went to elementary school together. You know, I moved away right before middle school and came back to Central Texas. But I trust his judgment. I mean, you know, he played ball there, and you know, he was running bleachers, and him and his high school sweetheart, who also went to school with, they saw this thing. Now, what it was or what it is, I don't know. But when you have multiple people saying that they see this thing, it's like the Mothman thing. Right. Now you have hundreds and hundreds of accounts all over the country because it wasn't just isolated like Point Pleasant. Now I know that that's where the when we first started hearing about it, it was. And a lot of people think that like the Dogman phenomenon began in Michigan because they call it the Michigan Dogman. But people were seeing these things way back. One of the earliest accounts that we have here in Central Texas is from a story called The Bear King. And I had my wife made a song about it, and it plays on the show. It's been listened to like 50,000 times or something like that. And it's only been out for like a few months, 6 months, something like that. But what's crazy is that story is based on something that happened like back in the 1870s. This predates like all this other. Now, they have found a cave near Bertram where there were Viking runes that were carved into the wall. How did Vikings get to Central Texas? Well, they were all over the place.
Yeah.
You know, and I believe that they had habitation and they just moved further and further in, and they ended up here, you know. But was it the shapeshifter, you know, story of this thing that kidnapped this woman in the old days, like the pioneer days, whatever, which would be the old days for here? That would have been the Wild West. But the Bear King is such a weird thing because you get reports now. Now, me and David Weatherly and Eric Clausius, I don't know if you know who those are. Eric Clausius is a filmmaker. He's made The Beast of Brushy Creek. It's on Amazon. And then, of course, David Weatherly. I don't know if you've had David on. He's a great author. Written all kinds of books. He's doing all the 50 states of cryptids. It's really, you should get him on your show. He's a really knowledgeable guy, good friend of mine, him and Chad Lewis. And so at the last conference, I was talking to them too. And we were talking about this whole weird phenomenon with, you know, these cryptids going back to way before where they were supposedly first seen. And it's crazy because David was covering a case in that same corridor of a bear-like humanoid creature. And I've covered several now. And then, of course, my friend Josh Nonogio, he's got a huge channel, What Lurks Beneath. He did a whole series on it. It was in Yosemite and the different national parks, and people seeing these bear-like entities, whatever, but they're not werewolf-looking. Now, I had a woman that came on the show. She's been married since, I forgot her last name now, but it was Jenna Perry at the time. And then we had another one, Guadalupe Hernandez. But they saw this bear-like creature right around the same area, Dripping Springs. And the one that she saw was looking in the window of the cabin that they were staying at for a wedding out near Dripping Springs. And it was insane, dude. It was like, she said, no, it was bear-like. And she said it on the show.
Yeah.
And people were like, dude, this is, you know, it changes the whole, you know. And then people, they always say, well, it's a dog man. It's a dog man. It's a dog man. But
That's
what
not
is
what
a
they
dog
said,
man?
though.
She said it wasn't dog-like and it wasn't wolf-like. It was bear man is what it was.
Man, bear, pig.
Yeah, exactly. And people go, whoa, man, bear, pig. You know, and then they say, it's super cereal. You know, and you're
super cereal.
So you're sitting there and you're going like, okay, this sounds weird. But then Guadalupe Hernandez. Hers was about a year and a half, I think, not quite 2 years, if I remember. I could be wrong. I got to go back and look at the notes in front of me for that. But she was driving into town, and she said that her and her son, her teenage son, saw a bear-like entity-looking. She called it an entity. She said that it was dragging I think she said it was like dragging a deer or something, and then it stood up, and it was like a man, and it was like a big, powerfully built man. It was like 9 foot tall. And she was like, holy crap. And then she says, I had just moved there. So she literally, within like months, she sold her house and they moved into an apartment in South Austin. And then she bought a house up in Leander. because she wasn't playing around. She's like, if something is out there like that, I don't want to be around it.
Right.
And so Weatherly lives in that area. And so, of course, he encountered somebody who had the story, and he went which was out in Blanco. Now, if you look at the map, that's Devil's Backbone, that whole area. Me and my brother mapped it out years ago, and we did punch pins, and we put like the red were Dogman, the blue were Bigfoot.
Right.
But then we started getting these weird accounts, and the first one was my brother, a guy that lived out there named Clinton. He actually told us, he says, now he worked with my friend Scorpion, who was just in the chat, but they worked together at this restaurant. And this guy says, he told me and Scorpio, after he had talked to my brother had talked to him first through Scorpion. And he said, look, that's what he told me. He said, same thing I told your brother. He said, this thing wasn't no werewolf. I don't know what it was. It didn't look like something from The Howling or Van Helsing. He goes, and it damn sure wasn't a Bigfoot. He goes, it was like, yeah, Scorpion, you remember. I know he remembers this. And so I was with Tony, and we interviewed this guy with my old co-host who passed away, R.I.P. Armando Salazar. But it was crazy. We interviewed this guy, and we were talking to him, and he was very adamant that what he saw was not bear-like, it was not completely wolf-like, but it wasn't a gorilla. And this was the kicker right here. And so I told him, I said, Clinton, what was it that you saw? And he says, I saw a mixture of all three. That was very profound. So then me and my brother went back to the drawing board because we were already doing ghost investigations out there, and we were interviewing people. And I said, what do we make of this? And my brother said, well, it's not a red pen and it's not a blue pen. So let's get an alternate pen. And he said, why not purple? Because this, blue and red make purple, right? We couldn't find them at the time. So we just got yellow. So we started putting yellow. But here's the interesting thing, Jason and Jamie. If you looked at the map and you were driving, Ranch Road 12 is the Devil's Backbone, and you drive from San Marcos to Blanco, and if you look at a map, Texas, folks, go check it out. If you look at the east side of that map, it is inundated with blue. And then you go to the west side of it, it's inundated with red, which is Dogman. And then right there in the middle, and then of course there's a little bit on each side, a little bit of mixing, not much. But then you got these yellow in the middle. And I tell my brother, I said, what in the hell? We don't have the map anymore, but that was years ago. The move from that house, And my brother's actually working on a book about the house we lived in. And recently something really weird happened to him, and he fell into an elevator shaft, which is just bizarre because he thought the door was closed, and it was that site. We talked about it Sunday before, not this Sunday, but last Sunday. It's had several accidents at that site, so it was kind of weird. And it happened at the same time that I was getting hit with my gout, and we thought, man, there's something going on here. It's just really weird.
Yeah.
And so when we looked at the map, and my brother was looking at it, he was the one really. I can't take credit for it. It's actually him. He was doing the push pins, and I was building the stories. And he's my older brother, and sometimes he's a jerk because he works for me, and he doesn't like working for his younger brother. But I told him, I said, go build a company, do what you got to do. He complains, but he does it, whatever. So he was looking at the map, and he says, look, he said, there's no way that this can be this perfect, like how all the Bigfoot are kind of over here, Dogman are over here, and then there's this weird whatever. And then right there, Purgatory Road sounds kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
There's a cemetery where people see the Goat Man. And it is a
Goat Man.
A black. Now, there was a guy that wrote books about this. His name was Burt Wall. And Burt Wall wrote like 4 books. And one of them was The Long Great Tunnel, which was about his near-death experience. A really great book. I read that one. But I could swear that there was another book that I read, and it was before he died. But it was about his death, which is weird because that's like a Mandela thing, right?
Right.
But when I talked to some of the people from the tavern out there, the Devil's Backbone Tavern, which had different incarnations. It was most recently, it was a biker place, but everybody out there got along. So I went out there and I talked to some of the locals and I shot pool. I'm terrible I suck at pool. Anybody can beat me at pool, but I'm out there like, yeah, I love to play pool. Whoa. Years in the bar, I never played billiards, and I'm like, these people are looking at me like, this guy's losing. He sucks. Why are you?
There's a sucker right there.
Yeah.
Put your money on the table, buddy.
But I just wanted the story. So I'm like, oh,
Right.
you beat me again. Tell me another story,
Right.
because they're a little bit guarded because there's some weird people that'll come out there and they'll ridicule these people, right?
Right.
Especially after Burt Wall and he was on Unsolved Mysteries. It's like this whole thing, and all these people came out there saying, tell us a ghost story. And they're like, get out of here. You're not from here. You're not a local. You're not a local. Get out of here. So I'm out there and I'm talking to these guys, and we had a weird experience out there, me and my brother, with this, what we thought was a hitchhiker. Totally weird story. It's on the show, and I'll get to that in a minute. But we were out there multiple times to interview different locals. And one of the things that they talked about, they said that Burt Wall, one guy, he said that Burt, and I don't know if this is 100% true, but he was a guy that was always out there. And he said that in one of Burt's books, he talks about a goat, that these ranchers back in the 1890s, they had been getting their animals mutilated and killed. And so they tracked this creature back to a cave, the Devil's Backbone near the Haunted Valley. And they saw it, and when it came out, it was a goat. He puts it in the book as a goat. And they shot and they killed this creature. But it was very weird looking. But one of the guys that was out there, this guy named John, he told me, and he told Scorpion, he told D, and a couple of my friends that were with me, he told all of us, 5 of us. And he told us, he said, that is not completely accurate. He goes, what they shot was a goat man.
Right.
But Burt didn't want to be looked at as a complete crazy person because he's already talking about Spaniards and monks and Comanches and he's over here talking about the Confederate soldiers, and people have told me they've seen him out there. So he's like already looked at as like, oh, this guy's an oddball. He's talking about all these weird anomalies and these ghost lights and UFOs and people are seeing, So it was like just a bridge too far. You're going to talk about Goat Man now. A goat man was killed in a cave. So in the book, supposedly he writes that it was a goat, which sounds even weirder because how is a goat itself?
Killer goat.
Killer goats going on a killing spree.
My kids play a game where you have this goat that goes around, Goat Simulator, and would be a terror like that. One of their favorite myths right now, they a couple of years ago, they were really looking up videos on Goat Man, because there's these creepy pastas and stuff like these kids get into. But yeah, I just don't get what people do. Like, you've already gone off the deep end. You might as well just keep going, buddy. Just say what it was. Goat Man.
Yeah, I mean, it's so, but that does happen,
Yeah, I know.
And there again, because we are, and this goes back to what I've been saying, we're kind of in this paradigm where you stay in your lane, I stay in mine. You talk about cryptids, and I talk about ghosts. And if you get them too mixed up, then there's a punishment there. People act a fool. And so I think he was trying to kind of stay away from the cryptids, but there's a lot of them out there, if that's what they are. And the goat man, definitely, I think that's what it was. That was a goat man. There was no goat that was going around killing all this cattle and damaging all this, whatever. But it was a goat-like entity. And then, of course, you got people who are giving you stories from Purgatory Road who see this black goat man. But there's also not the goat man doesn't haunt the cemetery. It's been seen near there, but not at the cemetery. Now, at that cemetery, which goes back to all the way back to the 1830s, there is a goat. There's a ghost dog, black dog that people see, and so that will come out and chase people's cars. And sometimes when you go up there, now I've never been inside the cemetery; they have it locked up, and I'm not going to go and trespass and cut the lock and jump in there and do whatever. But supposedly, if you go back to the back of it, where it's just surrounded by woods and there's just vines and stuff all over the tombstones, that is where you'll see this old Chuck-looking dog, this black dog. And people have been chased out of there, and they've been driven out by this black dog. Now, I've often wondered why there's this canid correlation in so many, different types of.
Me too.
Yeah. Not just in indigenous cultures or whatever, but religion too.
Right.
And it's like the guardian of the dead. So many people will see this iconic Anubis looking wolf like. Now, of course, the Aztecs, they have Xolotl. And Xolotl he's the guardian of the dead. That's what he does. His job is to keep the living from the dead. Okay. So Jamie would be in trouble being the living dead girl. They would be like, nope, somewhere in the middle. You can't confuse them. But Zolotl, that was his job. But then it's very similar to Anubis. That's the same thing. But then you have this black dog. In Spanish, we call it the quedejo or the hombre lobo. And so you have these different people who will come out and they'll, and I always thought it was like I said before, it was like, I don't believe none of this is mentiras. There's stories to scare kids. I don't believe in La Llorona or Chupacabra. I don't care. I don't believe in the brujeria. I don't believe in any of that stuff. I'm not into that. And my tias would talk about it and I'd be, yeah, whatever, you know, you know, and you tell them, hey, you're crazy. I don't believe any of this crap. But when you see something when you're 15 years old and your best friend's with you, who now is a preacher in my hometown, and we're two, you know, Hispanic kids growing up, whatever, and we thought we were badass little chavalitos, you know, until you see that, and then you're like, what the hell is that? And I was on your show, Jason, and I told you what I saw. I've been on a lot of people's shows. I've been on Tony Merkel. Just pretty much everybody's heard it. Paul Sinclair, another great guy. And so when you stop and you look at this, you know, a person who is a non-believer, I didn't really believe, I believed in ghosts because I had some encounters with some stuff when I was a kid, but like that was too much for me. Like I didn't believe in any of that other stuff, you know, and like the lechuza just seems stupid to me. And then when you stop and you read the stories and you have to go back to the ancient lore. Now, supposedly the wives that were taken by the Watchers, who to me are the Anunnaki, when they took those women as their wives, when they were punished, they became harpies. Now, that's a Greek legend. That's a myth, but it goes back to somewhere. Now, somewhere down the line, the Titans became the gods and vice versa. And I think that it's all connected.
Yes.
The thing is, history repeats itself and then it gets really, really, really convoluted. Follow me on this one. If you go back and you just look at the Greek history, right? And Greek is very important because the Orthodox Church and the Holy Roman Empire in the West was Latin. The Holy Roman Empire in the East was Greek. So the Greek Orthodox was very important. They have their own, you know, whatever. And so when you look at what they believe, and you have to look at it, they write in Greek, ancient Greek texts, especially in Revelations, right? Now it's called Revelation, whatever.
Right.
But I always remember it as Revelations. And when you read Revelation and you start to see, like, he wrote it in an ancient Greek text. And he wrote it that way on purpose because the Roman soldiers couldn't read. They couldn't even read Latin, much less Greek. That's how he was able to slip it by them. Because he was talking about the Antichrist. And the Antichrist's number is 666, which spells Nero Caesar.
Right.
And of course, him being a former Roman emperor, it doesn't bode well for the Council of Nicaea to be like, yeah, you know, one of our emperors was the Antichrist. That's kind of a problem. And Constantine is like, you know what? Let's just get rid of that because that's just too much. Let's not, you know, let's just pretend like that, you know, but history has a way of coming back up. You can suppress the truth, but it is what it is. And so the Greek is very, very important. And when you look at the Greek beliefs, going back, they melded together some of these myths and they mixed it into Christianity. Now, if you look at Alexander and the conquests, and this goes way back to 334 BC, right? You're talking like ancient history, 300 and something years. Why was there so much Greek influence? Well, because Alexander conquered Persia. Nobody believed that he could do it except for him and the Macedonians. And they did. And they spread Hellenism, which is the Greek culture, to where the Greek coins became the currency, and it was all the way to India. And they opened up the ports of Gujarat. When you look at that right there, I know we're moving along, jumping around. If you guys need me to slow down or not do this, I can do whatever.
You're good. We got, I'll just tell you, we go to break here in about 8 minutes.
8 minutes sounds good. And then I can do what I got to do.
Yeah, this is really cool.
Yeah, so I'm glad you like it. I'm just trying to flow, you know. But what happened was he established 6 different cities of Alexandria. Now only 2 were left. One was at the port of Gujarat, which became a different. It's been Jakarta, different names, whatever. Japatha. It's changed over and over again because it's changed hands. But gypsies overwhelmingly, that's where they come from. It's literally Guttera. And whenever they traveled from the port, you know, they just crossed over from India right into what would be like modern day Afghanistan and that region. And then they traveled from there through the Khyber Pass and into Europe until they got to Romania. And a lot of them settled there. That's why they call themselves Roma, because they blended in with the Latin, they set up, whatever. But then they were driven out. And one of the things that they took with them was the knowledge of the second library of Alexandria. A lot of people don't know this because they don't read in different languages. I do. And this isn't me bragging. They're like, he's bragging. Because shut up. I'm just trying to be honest, okay? Learn to read 8 languages and you too can be whatever, you know? But if you read from the port of Guttera, was this the third, well, I think it would have been the 4th Alexandria, but it was the only one that existed besides Egypt to this day now. But they've all changed names, right? But Alexander, he spread that knowledge. And so the Library of Alexandria being burned was a tragedy, right? It happened in Egypt. But there was another one. There was another one. And people don't realize this, but further out to the east, there was another library. And one of the things that people don't understand is Hinduism is actually not polytheistic. It's monotheistic because Brahman, the main god, is actually multiple facets of himself. All the different gods like Ganesh and all of them, they all are part of him. That's just aspects of him. And so when they take this knowledge, this information, they used it. And people were like, they commit sorcery, they're doing magic, blah, 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 blah. They had knowledge and they used it. It's like having the cheat codes. And it was written in their minds. They didn't have a written language or culture. All they did was repeat it to their children and their children's children, their children's children's children. And they know it by heart. And they know about this esotericism. That's why they were able to do the things they did. People would talk about how they saw them shapeshift and they could make themselves disappear or levitate. That's because they had the knowledge of the ancients. And that is why Zoroastrianism was literally a monotheistic, one of the oldest monotheistic religions ever on earth. And it all stemmed from their interaction with the Greeks and these people from the ports that were created by Alexander, and it was all melded together. And when the Ottomans took over, now that was Asia Minor, a lot of those Greeks that were dissidents that lived in that, they spread it everywhere. And so when the Bible took hold as a Greek foundation, like the Orthodox Church, then it just was all over the place. It went so far as into Russia. Russia's predominantly Greek Orthodox.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's a good stopping point, or should we?
No, it's super interesting. You know, you mentioned Alexander, too. His connection to like why he went to Mesopotamia is one of the things I've always been interested in. Is that the thought is that he was trying to find that he was one of the descendants of the Anunnaki.
Yeah, of Achilles himself, actually.
Yeah, and that he was going into like Persia to like his ancestral roots. He wanted to basically prove his divinity to these ancient Mesopotamian gods.
And interesting, he's actually in the Bible. They talk about him as the ram that stamps his feet and breaks the earth in Daniel. And it says that he would make sacrifice to strange gods in Egypt, which he did, because he was like, I give supplication to all these gods, but he didn't believe in them. He just so that he would pacify the people. And when you look at what happened to Alexander, the Gordian knot, it was a knot that was so big, it was so large that no human being could ever have tied that. But it would have been just right for a giant, an Anunnaki, somebody approximately 20 to 30 feet tall. That's what it was. But to prove, like you said, his divinity and it being a descendant of the gods, he took his sword and he struck the knot. And then, of course, nobody ever thought to do that. And they're like, we're trying to untie it. We can't. You know, who did this? A giant? Yes, a giant did. Yes, they tied it. Yes. And Alexander cut it. Boom. And there it was. And so it's very important to understand history and understand where we've been. Then you can understand where we are. Then you can understand where we're headed. There's a reason why they convolute history and they destroy it.
They don't even teach it.
Yeah, they don't even teach it correctly. So it's, you know, in America, it is the least favorite subject of the children. They hate history.
That was my favorite subject.
Mine too. Mine too.
Yeah, it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. You know, I have kids that are going to school now, and I feel like they're teaching them nothing at all of any kind of history. Well, it's barely covered anymore. I mean, it was barely covered when I was a kid, but now it's just like non-existent. It's sad. We can't learn from our mistakes without learning from history. But I also always gotten, I don't know, we got in arguments with my history teachers in high school too. But, you know, the whole Alexander the Great, that whole thing there's such a story there, I think, that has not been told yet. You know what I'm saying? That history-wise, there's so many aspects of that are just brushed over. What I think his general purpose was, that he wanted to be the divine. He wanted to be the God. He wanted to show, I am from them. I am Anunnaki. What was tragic is the destruction of that library probably is a lot of the information that he had learned. You know what I'm saying? And if
Aristotle.
Yeah. So we're talking about the ancient. I mean, even in the Torah and all that is Mesopotamian retelling. Not all of it, but a lot of it is.
Most of it,
You know, and just look what happened in Iraq when we, basically private military contractors and the U.S. military went in and took artifacts that weren't even considered. There's stuff that was more expensive they could have taken if it was about money. No, they took certain artifacts that, for whatever, collectors, people are still worshiping these gods.
I can tell you a lot about that stuff when we come back.
All right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. The secret order, the secret religion going on. All right. Well, we're going to go to commercial break, guys. Thank you. I want to say to Summer Side of Life for the $10 donation. Yes, you can donate on Super Chat. We're also on Patreon. If you look up on Jason Bland, Paranormal Soup on there, you can find us on Patreon. We're going to go to commercial break. I think I hit the wrong button. That's the wrong music. This is the right music for commercial break. We're going to go commercial break. When we come back, we're also going to open up the phone lines, too. You guys can call in and join the conversation with our guest tonight, Josh Turner from Paranormal Round Table. I know I was on Heather Wade's show. We were getting really deep. We went 5 hours the other night, and she had no callers, but a lot of people listening, because I know we talk. You listen to us, but you can join this conversation. You can, especially if you had experiences that relate to a lot of the stuff we're talking about tonight. I'd love to hear from you when we come back from the short commercial break.
Into the combined effects of sensory deprivation and hallucinatory drugs. The subject of the experiment is himself, and the experiment is out of control. Ken Russell's Altered States, a film that must not be missed, is in the West End now. Altered States, Certificate X.
Do you wish for more paranormal and spiritual content? The Paranormal Chronicles magazine is a free digital magazine crammed with the very best in paranormal and spiritual articles and features. No sign-up, no subscription, just free reading and knowledge for you. Read today at www.paranormalchronicles.com/magazine.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Paranation Magazine is a new paranormal magazine based out of Denver, Colorado. Our goal isn't just to give you the best paranormal content out there, but to promote paranormal unity. We're doing this by giving everyone an opportunity to tell their stories and to share their experiences. For more information, follow us on Facebook at Paranation Magazine and soon, paranationmag.com.
I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is the extraordinary travels of a young, alone, and broke psychic in the highly anticipated new book from internationally renowned psychic, medium, medical intuitive, and best-selling author Sherry Dillard. Critics have described I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like as an engrossing memoir, an empowering story of how a broken girl came to accept her psychic gift, a refreshing and fun read. I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is available through Amazon, Kindle, Barnes & Noble, and wherever books are sold.
Wrote Spirits of the Dead with a pen dipped in warm blood. You will see the ultimate in terror with this important all-star cast. Brigitte Bardot, Alain Delon, Jane Fonda, Terence Stamp, and Peter Fonda in Edgar Allan Poe's Spirits of the Dead. Only Poe's demented genius could bring to the screen such horror and evil. Spirits of the Dead stars Brigitte Bardot, Alain Delon, Jane Fonda, Terence Stamp, and Peter Fonda. Directed by three masters of the cinema, Federico Fellini, Louis Malle, and Roger Vadim. Spirits of the Dead is an adventure in terror beyond your wildest nightmares. Spirits of the Dead in color is rated R.
So, does anybody want to play Parcheesi? Okay, who brought the dog?
You're listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419 or by Skype caller ID oojblandoo or jblandparanormalsoup. And now to your host, Jason Blank.
Tonight's guest is Josh Turner from Paranormal Round Table. We're going to go down a lot of different rabbit holes in the paranormal world because, like he said, these scenes can't just be boxed into one category. We can only talk about one thing. We're going to just stick with Bigfoot. It's a physical creature, or Dogman, all these things are open for debate. All these things are open for your experiences. I don't care. I don't take any stance on any of these things. I'm just trying to learn from people's experiences. And tonight, you can call in, share yours with us as well. I'd love to hear, Heather, if you're out there, your Dogman experience, I'd love for you to call in and talk about that again. I know I'm pressuring you. But I'd love to get Josh's experience and take on that if you want to call in. But everybody else, too, what have you had? It doesn't have to be Dogman. It doesn't have to be Bigfoot. It could be ghosts. I don't care. They're all these experiences, in my opinion, as I said before, why I named the show Paranormal Soup, are all connected in some way. And I think that's what drives a lot of people nuts in their certain little box niche fields. They can't stand that idea. I love it. I think it's awesome. I think it's the part of the beauty of creation in the world, the dark and the light, all of it above, all of it below, all of it connected in some way, and so much history to talk about. Josh has got a plethora of knowledge of history to talk about tonight as well. We got a lot to get into, so let's go ahead and get back to the show. Thank you for hanging out with us still tonight, Josh. I know it's a late night for you since you did like a couple hours before the show.
Oh, I'm a night owl, dude. I mean, when I leave here, I got to help finish up the patrol, so I don't go home until 4 or 5 in the morning. So
I tell you what, like I said, I went on Heather Wade, Kingdom of Nye, had me as a guest last Wednesday. And we were supposed to be a 3-hour show, ended up being a 5-hour show with not a single phone call all night. I'm thinking I'm being horrible, but I got a lot of compliments after the show from people. People emailed me and messaged me. So people were listening. Nobody wanted to call in. I don't know if it's just because I was scaring them too bad, because we were getting into demonic possession. And what happens when somebody's perfectly possessed? They, as Malachi Martin said, they know they're perfectly possessed. And what happens to that person? Are they able to manifest that demonic into reality? More than just they're walking around, they got a demon inside of them. Can that demon manifest through them? Are they the doorway to become something physical, like your werewolf? You know, like your man bear pig. I don't know. You know,
Not mine. It's not my man bear pig.
But you know, I said in your chat room tonight, and you saw the comment, is that sometimes people die, and the darkness that was inside them lingers. What happens to somebody who, let's say there is such thing as a werewolf? They live their life, they're going around on the full moon changing, but one day they get old and they die. Do they still haunt? Is that what the spirit that's inside of them, that wolf, that thing, still around? Waiting for maybe the next person it can possess and change. These are the things we were talking about, and we were getting into some of the Malachi Martin cases too. So I think we scared a little bit of people.
You know, if you were looking at the Romanian, partially Hungary, and then Bulgaria, it's an Eastern European theme that when a werewolf dies, they become a vampire.
Yes.
Yeah. And so they're very inextricably linked. A lot of people don't realize that. And of course, some of the work I've done recently with these temples, these cults, the werewolves, vampires, they're interchangeable in a lot of ways. They kind of choose the different paths, but they're sorcerers. So
I feel like there is some connection. I always loved that in Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula. When you see he takes on many different forms in the movie, even a beast, a werewolf, like being, you know. It's not totally like Bram Stoker's Dracula, the original novel, but the things Francis Ford Coppola did in that movie visually, I loved.
Yeah.
You know, that he was much more than this, just a blood-sucking, you know, count. That he could shapeshift and change and become a beast, could become a bats, you know. I think there are possibilities of bloodlines of people. And you've had some very interesting episodes that I think relate to this. Gordo. The one, what was that one? That was, I know I've listened to this one. It was about a guy named Gordo who had a half-sister. And they... the sisters, he had two sisters, right? I think that they changed and attacked these guys working on a construction site. But it sounded like a bloodline thing with him, like it was passed down from his father. And that he could change into this thing, but he was like, you know, a 6 foot tall or 6'7" Mexican guy. You know, it was a bit weird and off, but he was really a werewolf. He was changing. I think you titled it "Werewolves Among Us." I think that was that one.
Yeah, that was in
fascinates
Mexico. That one.
And you know, you said gypsy, and I think that's why I brought this one to mind, is that he had connections to the gypsy bloodlines. And again, what do you say? They could changeling manifest.
When you go back and you look at these cases, and if you do it case by case and you really go deep, you'll always find the common thread. That's the thing, and like people don't realize that if you just keep looking, you're going to find what you're looking for. And the thing is, okay, back to what we were saying earlier, just to finish up, one of the reasons why, and this probably speaks to a mutual friend of ours, Paul Wallace, who we're both friends with.
Yeah, great.
He's done a lot of work on you know, the ancient alien subject, which is amazing. Well, he's just a brilliant guy. And he's really, you know, you and him are good friends. I need to get him back on the show and finish up because we never really, we left so much meat on the bone. It's easy to do with him. He's got so much. Yeah. But he thinks very highly of you too, which says something. And brilliant guy, but what he's always talking about Plato. And that is very important. And if you look at Alexander, his bloodline, it was Macedonian, it was Philip was his dad. But just stop and look at his teacher, who was Aristotle. And Aristotle instilled in him a lot of that esoteric drive for knowledge of the ancients. And Aristotle got that from Plato. Plato was his teacher, and of course Socrates was Plato's teacher. And then that just went on. It passed on and on. I believe that knowledge is the same way. It's passed on and on. The knowledge of the ancients just keeps going. And we get further and further away, and it gets a little more diluted. And people don't realize that people were humongous at one time. Because somebody asked me one day, and they said, well, how is it that the women bred physically? How can they breed with giants? And I said, that's because the women were bigger. And they're like, how much bigger? I said, they were the size of the giants. Let's put it that way. Maybe a little bit smaller, but still, they were large. And I tell people, if you look at the Hindu yugas, all right, and it really does start with the Satya Yuga. People live to be 100,000 years. Then you get into the Tatya Yuga, and people were like 50 feet tall. This is true. This is what they believe. And then the Tatya Yuga. Now, of course, morality is cut down to 75%. Now, whether that means, because the Vedas aren't exactly explicit that it means that, but take it in like terms of everybody is 25% less good. And probably every one out of 4 people is probably downright evil. So just look at it as both, right? And then in the next Yuga, which is the Dorpa Yuga, which we have the remnants of that because of the flood. So we know that there was a flood, and that kind of ended the Dorpa Yuga. People were living to be 1,000 years because it goes down 10% like every time, right? And then morality is reduced. So morality in the Dorpa Yuga was down to 50%. So it was like 50-50 how many good people there were. Then you get to where we're at. We're in the Kali Yuga, and we're topping out at 100 years. We're topping out at 100 years, and everybody's a piece of crap. Okay? A quarter of the people might be trying to do what's right, but they're ending up like Ned Stark, and they're just being killed because the bad people. I've been told, my friends call me that all the time. My friends that know me in my everyday real life, they're always telling me that I'm doing the right thing to my own detriment. And I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? Because you have to do what's right. I got put in.
And if you're Game of Thrones character, that's just death, man. You're done.
Yeah, you're just dead. That's it. And I had a guy that was
totally understand.
I'm sorry, what was that, Jamie?
I totally understand.
Yeah. I had a guy beefing with me recently who literally was quoting Game of Thrones. He goes, you don't know how to play the Game of Thrones. Because I'm not playing it. I'm just trying to be real and be moral, and you're not. Simple. And one of the things that happened to me recently, I'm not going to get into a big dissertation, but I had someone who was being ripped off by somebody, and I told them that the guy was doing. I said, you got to look at this guy. He's doing this, this, and this. Well, this person turned around and told that person what I said. And then that person was given the power over me to make my life hell. And I was like, and so me and my wife were talking about it, and I told her, she's like, would you do it the same way again, knowing how much pain and suffering it was? And I said, yes, you have to. And she was like, she's like, that's why I love you. She told me that. And she says, look, this is why we're together, because it doesn't matter. I've instilled that in everybody I've taught. I'm like, look, you have to do what's moral, what's right. Even back in the day when I worked at the clubs and I would fight and I'd beat the crap out of people. I didn't kick a dude when they were down. I only remember one time doing that. And that's because that guy had done something very, very, really just pissed me. It did something to a woman that worked for us. And I just was not happy with that.
You
guy.
lost control. Yeah.
I lost control, but I never, once the guy was on the ground, that was it. You don't just keep wailing on him and give him a second baby head. You know what I mean? Because that's what's going to happen, cerebral hematoma, and you're going to end up going to jail. And so I'm like, the guy's belly up. That's it. He's done. You don't keep fighting. Just back off. As I said, people want to go over and start kicking people in the face and body slamming. That's how you end up in prison. Me, it's like, look, you started. I'm not necessarily going to say they took I let them have the first swing, because if you're already in each other's face, the fight is already going to happen. Okay, from Gen X standpoint, it's like you're right there, I'm right there.
Gen X standpoint, right?
I'm just like, boom. I'm not going to wait for you to start throwing punches and beat me up, because that first.
If you threatened it, we're in it.
That's it. But I did not, continue on when the person's on the ground and they're beaten and they're putting their hand up, like, just keep wailing on that person. That's just immoral. So there is some immoral ambiguity there, but you got to understand something. You have to at least try to do what's right. And when if you do that and you really do try, I believe that God will take care of you. I believe that karma will work itself out and you will be taken care of at the end of the day. And even if it's not in this life, it will be in the next. You will be done, taken care of. But it's only, and you never, ever, though, you never should do it for the reward of an afterlife.
Exactly.
For any reward. Yes. Or for punishment. People do things. They're not even worried about going to heaven. They just want to go to hell, and they're scared of it. Well, because you did things you weren't supposed to be doing. If you do things right, at least try to with the right intentions. You can sleep at night knowing that you're okay.
The reward is living
Because
in a
you
better
want
world.
them right, and you want morals to not shift the other way to where that's like the majority, thinks something horribly different. You want to keep those morals from shifting and just want to naturally do the right thing.
I want to say we do have somebody that's been holding on the phone line if you're good to take a phone call.
Sure.
All right. Who do we got on the line here? I know you've been on for about 10 minutes.
Hi, Jason. It's Heather.
Hey, thanks. Oh, thank you, Heather. And after I make you wait 10 minutes after, I'm like, Heather, call in. Heather, call in. And I hear you call in. I make you wait 10 minutes. Thank you so much, Heather.
That's all right. I was having a fun time listening to you guys.
So, yeah, I've been pressuring Heather all night to call in because she called in a few weeks ago. You can find the clipped phone call I put up of her dogman encounter. But I said that night when she called in, is like, I really want Josh to hear this. So go ahead, Heather. Tell him what happened.
Okay, so pretty much my experience started when I was coming home from work a couple weeks ago, and on my way, I take the back roads home, so I go on a gravel road, and at the end of this gravel road, there's a bridge and there's a historic house that somebody occupies to the right of me. But anyway, I saw a pair of red glowing eyes, and I want to call it a wolf man is what it looked like to me. It was like about 8 feet plus. It stared at me and everything, because I had stopped my car in the gravel and everything. It stared at me for a split second, darted into the ditch, and disappeared. A week prior to my experience, though, my mom experienced she calls it a shapeshifter. She saw this thing actually shape and metaphor into this creature, wolf thing that stood over 8 feet tall, and it darted across from one lawn over to our neighbor's lawn into the back of our trailer area. And ever since then, we've had weird experiences going on in our trailer park. Hello, is there?
Yeah, we're here. We're listening.
Okay, it was dead silent. I was just like,
no, we're just listening, Heather. You keep talking.
You got the floor.
But yeah, but ever since then, we've had weird experiences in the trailer park, and now it's kind of gotten word in the trailer park about the shaper wolf-like thing down in our end, and all of our neighbors, they always shut their doors and lock the doors and take in their animals and everything at night. So, and we've had people actually coming out now trying to catch this thing, which I don't think is a good idea. Yeah. And I also did look up, I went to a historian to find out what the history was about the house. It was actually used as part of the Underground Railroad.
See, I told you there was something historic there. I told you it would be something historic that had to do with information.
And she said that if there were people buried there, it isn't documented.
Right.
But it probably is people buried on that property.
You said too. You also saw a girl in a white dress, right, in a ditch or something like that.
Yeah.
Around the same time period of all this stuff weirdness started, right?
Yeah, just in the ditch, right outside the trail, just before I got to the trailer parks and everything, the cornfield and everything. Of course, the farmers have already taken down their corn and their beans out of the field, so now I have a clear picture of everything, and I haven't seen anything unusual out in the fields.
This is Iowa.
Yeah. This is central Iowa.
Yeah. And when Heather called in, Josh, I think your first question to me before you even gave me the whole what happened was like, can making that you had heard making eye contact with a dog man means that they can steal your
we
soul.
had Googled,
That was right or something like that.
yeah, we had Googled up shapeshifters and different things. My mom's part Chippewa and everything, so she was looking up Native American stuff and everything, and everything that we read, if it makes eye contact with you, it's supposed to come and take your soul. I'm not afraid of this thing. Yeah, I do know when it's around, because I'll start getting like really nervous and everything, but and I get the feeling that I'm being watched, but I haven't seen it physically since that night. So,
And like you said, you lived there for several years before any of this started up.
I've lived here. I've lived here for 10 years, going on over 10 years. But when we moved the first time and everything, I went to high school here. I graduated here, so I've actually lived in this trailer park longer than 10 years, but off and on.
But nothing like this was ever happening before.
Nothing like this has ever happened.
So yeah,
go ahead.
No, go ahead, Josh. Go ahead.
I got a couple questions for you. First and foremost, like addressing the eye thing. Now, here's something I'm not an expert by any stretch, but I do get a lot of stories. One of the things I hear about when people make eye contact, I believe that it's a little bit far to say that they will steal your soul, because they can't. They cannot do that. The one thing they can do, though, is make a connection. The eyes are the windows to the soul. That's a truth. And what that does is it puts them on a vibrational level with you, to where that they can invade your personal space. In particular, people who are not, like spiritually protected, you can end up being harassed. And these things, it's not like a mystery to me. Like some people, they're like, well, how did a dog man end up in my house? How did a Bigfoot end up in my house? Like, it's because they're not breaking in through the front door. Sometimes they do, but it depends on what mode they're in. They don't have to. They can use this, what I call like a bypass or a stepway. They sidestep, okay? And they can literally, I don't know if you guys have ever been at Lovecraft. You know Lovecraft? Have you ever seen the movie From Beyond? And that's a really weird flick. But the book, like in Lovecraft talks about how these things are around you all the time. Well, a lot of the ancient belief, and it goes all the way up to Islam, and it was in a lot of the Gnostics too. It's not there anymore. Yeah, the jinn. They're hidden from us, but they exist at right angle from a right angle. So they hide from you. You can't see them, and at times they can't see you. It just depends on where they're at with the veil. But most of the time they can see you. Not all the time. Like I said, you can be veiled. But they literally have an ability, and it looks like magic to us, right? So that's the first thing, and I'm going to tell you, like when they can make a connection with you, a spiritual connection, then they can haunt you, literally, and people will see these dogmen in their yards, like they'll see them on the side of the road, and then they'll see them in their yard, they'll see them in their house, they'll see them in their dreams, because it made connection with you. And so a lot of it too is the vessel. Is a skinwalker can be a vessel. I don't know different types of vessels, human vessels, and they can actually use animals too. And then they can shapeshift and change and warp whatever that vessel is, using what I call the other. And I learned that from dealing with some of these self-proclaimed werewolf vampire cultist members who claim that they use a demonic other that attaches itself to the lower part of their back, and then the base of the neck, and then somewhere in the middle. So you got the three chakras, boom, boom, boom,
Indwelling.
And so they connect with this like a symbiote. Like think of Venom from the comic books, and that's real. And they literally they infuse people with what I call the black goo. It's like this, it's like this substance that they leave. It's like ectoplasm, but it's black, and it literally it's a sign of the darkness, and so it really gets deep. These people told me some really crazy stuff, but it's not crazy. It's just hard to take all of it in. So the question I have for you, and this is if you were a witness of mine, I would ask you this: have you had other encounters with other things?
Other things in like paranormal?
Yes. Anything that you would consider out of the ordinary or an
I'm around paranormal 24/7.
Okay. There you go. See, right there. Right
Yeah,
there.
it's not her first phone call on my show about the dog man. She just knew she had to call me after that happened.
See, and that's it right there. You are one of those people that we would classify as an experiencer. So what ends up happening with these people, the people that are very flesh and blood, they're like, oh, there's no way that person could have seen a Bigfoot and a werewolf and a blah, 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 blah. Yes, they can, because these things are not a physical flesh and blood thing. If it was a physical flesh and blood thing, I would say the odds are astronomical, unless you're in the woods at certain spots. But if you were to go and you were to look at them from that lens, from that spiritual lens, okay, and like I said on the map earlier, we were talking about the map. We had a map of Devil's Backbone. Why was it consistently in the middle where these creatures were kind of like in between something, you know? I think that what they do is they hybridize, and I don't think that it's a totally physical thing. I think it partially is, but I think it's also spiritual. Now, if we understood it, we would be, way ahead, ahead of the curve. But we're behind because the knowledge is hidden. And so Jesus says, my people die for lack of knowledge. And that's interesting to me, because everybody has been trying to tell us that we're not supposed to know this, we're not supposed to know that. If God wanted us to know it, they wouldn't. Then why does Jesus tell us that we die for lack of knowledge? Because it's been suppressed, and people are trying to free us from that, but they've been killed. They killed Christ and everybody else who's ever come and said, "Hey,
or free energy people."
Free energy people, yeah. JFK, JFK was like, "Hey, let's just get along." No, we don't want that. There's all these reasons why they do what they do, but it's always evil. And then when you stop and you look at these people who are able to do this thing, we're in absolute awe of them. But the truth is, they just have the cheat codes to this simulation. That's all it is. And they're not that cool. And in the
money.
And money. Yeah. Well, with those cheat codes, you can get money. I mean, you can do anything you want. And then, or you can be P. Diddy for a while and then see how far it goes until they go, we need to throw
I'm not going to P. Diddy.
They're like, hey, let's throw someone under the bus. We can use this guy. He's always riding around with 1,000 bottles of, whatever. Let's just throw him under the bus. He's the latest guy. We're going to throw. Oh, see, we're trying to do something about all these bad people. Look, we got rid of him. So what?
Yeah.
There's
like
a million
what they did
others.
with Weinstein.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
There's a million of them. There's like an assembly.
Kevin
line.
Spacey.
Oh my gosh! Don't get me started on that little punk.
Yeah.
These people, what they do, they're evil. And there's people who have sat there to my face. We've interviewed them face to face, and they have said, "I have witnessed a person shapeshift."
Billy
They
Corgan.
have seen it.
Billy Corgan said it twice.
Yeah, Billy. I mean, there was a guy on my show. He passed away recently. Big Nick. He's a good friend of mine, African American dude. Man, he's from Chicago. Big tough guy. Used to work for me for years. And he was in an elevator at a very large computer company, and he came on my show, and he said this guy changed into a reptilian. Another guy, Mike Clark, came on my show and watched one of these things, and he said it on my show: bite the back of a guy's head. Well, you might ask what the purpose of them doing that is, because of the pineal gland. Okay, now, like we were talking about Lovecraft. A lot of what Lovecraft's talking about in those, whatever, and he's making references to the Necronomicon. There really isn't a book called the Necronomicon, but there are actually
It was his version of a book.
Yes, an amalgamation of all of the different types of books. The Prodigies of Egypt. I mean, there's a million of them. I mean, like the Shams al-Ma'arif, where I've told people not to, please do not go and download that book. Don't buy it, because the Arabs are very specific. It is guarded by dark elves, and you don't want to end up in the underworld and the unseelie court. I'm not joking. I'm being completely sincere when I tell you that. I have studied a lot of this. I have never used it in my whole life. I have read the Kabbalah. I know what it says. I know what it means. And I know what exactly they're talking about. And I do not partake in any of that. And that is a mark of someone who does have intelligence, because you can read and listen and not absorb it into your mind and let it warp your view, because those books are written by people who absolutely want to influence you. and they were demonically influenced.
I had one.
Do what?
I had one when I was younger.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When
Almost had a problem. Almost.
You will.
Oh, I want to let Heather go here, but I want real quick to say, Heather, Josh, for her situation, one of the things I suggested for her is like, did somebody new move into the trailer park? Not to make you go werewolf hunting, but that's always my wonder. You know, like none of this stuff happens, and it starts happening. You know, are there people out there? You know, like your Gordo and your one story that have this genetic line, or not even a genetic line, a generational curse. More to say, you know, like people that are haunted by a demon in their family or familiar in the family, but it's really a curse of lycanthropy or changeling or become this, that it's been a part of their family and handed down, that there's people out there that maybe like somebody moved into her trailer park and the reason she saw a dogman-like creature is because they're there manifesting this reality. I mean, think about people who have psychokinetic stuff happen around them, like things moving, blood coming from the walls, and they say it's coming from this person. It's all psychokinetic rage built up inside, or frustration, or the woman's menopause, all this stuff. I think there's some evidence of that. But if humans have that inner energy to manifest and change reality like that subconsciously, imagine what it is for somebody who's demonically fully possessed by one of these things that can change them. What kind of weird stuff's going to happen around them? Leave you with that happy thought, Heather. Thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you, Jason.
Sleep well.
Heather,
You too, Josh.
If you want to come on our show and tell the story, and then we can get deeper into it at some point, just let me know. Jason, give her my information, and
That would be awesome.
yeah, and we could really dig down deep, and I could have some cases I could.
I mean, this is
compare.
currently happening, Josh.
Yeah.
Like this is unfolding for her in a sense, because this is when did this start, Heather?
Last part of well, what was it? The last part of September.
Yeah. So this is fresh. So you have a fresh Dogman thing going on here. So you guys definitely should connect.
And I just told a story, like I think it was probably about a month and a half ago, right before I got ill. And it was a guy in Iowa. It literally was at a wedding.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's crazy.
Oh, well, you guys got to connect. We got another person trying to call in. I'm going to let you go, Heather. Thank you so much.
All right. You have a good night.
You too. All right. We got somebody else on the line. Who do we got?
Hi, Jason and Jamie. It's Azariana. How are you tonight?
Hey, Azariana. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, the show is awesome. Josh is very knowledgeable about a lot of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I love history just as much as him, you know. So, well, I wanted to ask a question, and I'll make a comment on my experience. I know I've said this before,
it's fine.
So I'm not trying to repeat myself.
No, you're fine.
Yeah. A couple years back, I was driving home from somewhere, and the highway that stretch of the highway was very dark, very dimly lit, and I had seen what I had seen some type of what I first thought of like a wolf, but it was not a wolf. It was white. It was transparent. It was taller than like I say coyote wolf, okay? It was taller than a wolf. The legs were different. This thing was different.
What real quick though, what was different about the legs?
They were taller.
The back legs?
It was no, all four legs.
Okay, so they had longer
legs.
limbs. Okay.
Right. And it stopped in the middle of the highway, and it just looked at me. And like I said, it was transparent. I had my headlights on. It was transparent. And I was going, oh, okay, you know, this is weird, right? But again, red eyes, two red eyes. And I did not feel threatened at all. And I, part of me said, well, what the hell are you? And things like that. So I started talking to it. And I said, you're a wolf, you're, some type of canine. And, it didn't cross the road. It just stayed there. It seemed like an eternity. And then it went, and then it did seem to move and cross. But I swear, I didn't see it cross to the other side of the highway. It disappeared. And, I had to stop because I was like scared,
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the hell was it, So I kind of thought later, well, maybe it was a shapeshifter type thing, since it was translucent. And then I said, well, why was I picked? And why didn't I feel threatened? Because usually shapeshifters, I figure they're hunting. Or
maybe the transparency was camouflage. Like Predator, kind of.
Yeah.
Or it was
but I didn't.
In and out of reality.
Right, but I did not feel threatened. Myself, I didn't feel threatened. And by looking straight at me, I was like, oh, that's kind of scary, red eyes, And, I know animals have red eyes. Most night animals have red eyes, but these were different, And that kind of creeped me out, and I thought about it for such a long time and whatever, right? And about a couple of weeks later, I started seeing other shapeshifters. I saw a deer where I live, and in the shape of a deer, but again, it was transparent, and it came from the back of one of the buildings, and it just looked at me. Again, red eyes. And it just stood there. I didn't feel threatened, and I'm going, no, it's not it looks like a deer, but it's not a deer, How can something be transparent? That's what I was,
right.
I was trying to rationalize that. And then I saw, like I said, and then recently I just saw a fox, what looked like a fox, but again, transparent. And it came out of nowhere. These, if they're shapeshifters, they came out of nowhere. I didn't see where they came from. I didn't see them go to another part of the property or anything, And I'm like, okay, why am I picked out that I can see these things? What lesson or purpose do I have for this? And that's,
that's the body of the question there, right? Is like, what are you experiencing?
Yeah.
Josh, what's your opinion on that? Her seeing these three different translucent animals
Yeah.
like this with eyes, glowing red eyes.
Let's start with the wolf one. That the longer limbs that you're referring to, that is indicative of a skinwalker. I can tell you that 100%. I know that because I've talked to lots of different natives who've told me.
Asked.
Yeah, the limbs that tend to be because they're walking around with the back legs up and their arms out, stretched. And this is interesting. I'm going to go into a little bit here. Follow me. We were talking about the Quran earlier, the jinn, whatever. In the Hadith, there's a very esoteric books that are connected to the Quran, and what it says is, and I'm not Muslim, but I know that because the Bible had been stripped of a lot of this. So there are books that deal with this, but it actually talks about how the jinn cannot mimic a wolf. This is a very weird thing. It is one of the only, and there's a creature called the Nguela. Now, it depends on which region of the Levant you're in, from Yemen all the way to Turkey. It's very odd that they all have a different name, but they're pretty much the same thing. Nguela, Nagula, Gaula, whatever, Nazgala.
It's very similar.
Very similar, yeah. But it is a type of ghoul that haunts cemeteries. But they have a rival, which is a type of demonic entity, and it's known as an Ifrit. And this thing can actually change, but there's a type of ifrit. It's very specific. And there was a guy named Suyef Ibn Aside. I don't want to butcher his name.
I would butcher the hell out of it.
Yeah, he's from the Hermitite kingdom of the 600s, and he actually led an army of 100,000 men to take out 10,000 of these ifrits, and they fought them physically. They had the appearance, according to the actual records, that are now being kept under guard. And they were in Iraq too. In Iraq, there's a lot of stuff going on. We were talking about that earlier. And the Saudi Arabian princes have kept that secret, that they are really, they believe that this is what really happened. Okay. And these ifrit were so evil that they were cannibals. They were human, but they were also wolves. And so they were eating people. And whenever they would go into a city, one of the cities in Mesopotamia, which is in Samaria. Samaria is actually in Mesopotamia, my bad. But they actually decimated overnight the population of this city, which was 7,000 inhabitants. They destroyed them by eating them. So this guy took an army and he destroyed them. He defeated them. And they had, as they said, the appearance of wolves. They had backward bent legs like a man, like a dog mixed with a man, and they had the upper body. These were dogmen. There's no other way to call it. And they were destroyed. And this was in like 659 AD. And this was like, actually, I think it predated Islam. And so there are other accounts of this happening. You know, there's like in the 800s, it happened again. There was like this, and then there was this red wall that was built, you know. They call it Alexander's Wall, but it was actually, Alexander was after his time. And it stretched from the ocean all the way to Iran. And if you look at it on the map, there is something there. They don't know what it is, but supposedly man and jinn work together to keep something out, right? And so whatever these things were, they were actually physical. And some of the people, the scholars have said, the Sufis in particular, say that that was what they were. They were a type of demonic ifrit. Because then, to them, not all of jinn are evil. There's good, bad, and in between. And these things were purely evil. And they came from a hole, get this, from a hole near Baalbek. And that's very interesting, too. They came up out of this hole. That hole has been closed, but there's a lot of people that I had a guy that worked for me. His name is Ayman. He used to like live near there. And he was like, dude, don't ever go there at night. You'll be taken. He said, people disappear from there all the time.
Yeah.
And they blame these dogman looking creatures. So that, I don't know if that answers the question, but we'll get into the deer and then I'll wrap it all together. Now, there is a type of thing called a not deer. We don't know what it's called. So I had a guy on the show and he talked about it. Mark DeLeon. He's been on a couple different shows. He's a really good guy. He's from Corpus, but he was in Mathis and he was hunting with his cousin. If I'm not mistaken, it's been years since he gave me the story. And they saw 3 of them stand upright. I had another guy named Randall who, same thing. He saw these things stand up, and one of them went to his tree stand and started trying to climb up it. And he goes, dude, I'm looking at this thing. Now, this is kind of a, I'm going to get into it. I haven't told the story yet. But you said that, so I'm gonna tell that story on the show coming up pretty soon. But he took care of business. But it was so crazy that this deer would climb up a tree. It's not a deer. So what we call it is a not deer. Now, I have people everywhere that have seen these things stand up. Like there was a guy near Fresno, California. He was actually doing research. He's a good friend of mine. His name's Carlos. And he was out there looking for the Fresno crawlers. And he ends up seeing these 2 deer come out of nowhere and just stand up on their hind legs and walk like men. So there is also the fox. Now, there's another thing, a very insidious creature called the kitsune. Yeah, the kitsune is a Japanese legend, and of course, there are stories that abound from Okinawa.
Yeah.
Now, there are soldiers that have gone missing since World War II. We've been there in Okinawa, and my cousin was there. I actually went there on port one time on a ship, but I was working. I wasn't in the military. And so what ended up happening, I couldn't get off the ship because the Marines were like, oh, yeah, we're going whatever. And I was working, and this is a long time ago. I was a young guy, and I didn't realize how much I hated the ocean. Now I know. Believe me, I've done everything. I took a freighter to Africa too. It's not the funnest place. I'm thinking, oh yeah, it's cool animals. No, it sucks. It's disease and it's horrible. But so what happens is these GIs go missing. And now if you were to look at it and they were to tell you the truth, there's something like 76 different guys who had gone missing going into the bars there in Okinawa. It is unbelievable. It is crazy. And so I looked into some of this, but then you hit a wall. So what you got to do, folks, and I'm going to give you some advice. Don't use the search engines. It's not going to help you, okay? To go to Google or even DuckDuckGoose or Go, whatever the hell it is. There's a Russian one, and I don't know if I should say it on your channel or whatever, but Anthony, you can put the name of it if it's okay with Jason, and you can use the okay, because there's search engines. I don't know if it'll mess up the algorithms because YouTube. Because
if you say it out loud, yeah, YouTube.
That's why I'm not going to say it. But if Anthony, if you're listening, you can post the name of it on there. So you can use these search engines, and I suggest you do if you want to try to find more information, because actually teach yourself. See, it's down at the bottom right there. So if you could teach yourself how to read in different languages. It's much easier to read different languages than it is to learn how to speak them. At least for me, it is. But you can find a ton of knowledge, like a wealth of knowledge that's being taken from us here in the West. And so I don't know if that clears up anything, but those creatures can also be one and the same. The difference between those creatures and the real thing, and this kind of sounds like, Carpenter, the thing,
Yeah.
But if you want to, like when he says that's not a dog, because it's warped. It is not an accurate representation of what is real, right? They don't have the ability to complete the transformation. So you end up with some sort of weird deer that has like fingers instead of hooves. Or you'll get the kitsune, which has like multiple tails. That is one of the telltale signs, no pun intended. But then you'll get like this werewolf-looking creature with these elongated limbs and these weird man-like bodies. So I don't know if that clears it up for you, but you're probably dealing with the same entity. And I have to ask this question because I ask a lot of people that end up coming on my show, or I'll get their stories and we tell them, have you had other encounters besides those, or is that it? Have you seen any ghosts or anything like that?
That's a long.
Always. Yeah.
Too much for this phone call.
Too much for the phone call. So, there you go.
Yeah.
She's a regular caller.
Paranormal Soup person episode in herself.
Well, I'm a Paranormal Soup listener too. I love Paranormal Soup.
So. But she's always good she's always good to have something experience-wise to call in with whatever different guest I have. Most of the time, she's one of my favorite callers. So thank you so much, Azariana.
Oh, thank you. And have a blessed night, everybody.
You too.
Thank you.
Be safe.
You shared a video. I don't remember where you shared it, Josh. I think it's just on your timeline. And yeah, maybe it's CGI fakery. I don't know. But it's a guy getting beat up. He's starting to get beat up, and the thing pops out of him. And that's what I'm talking about inside of people. Something that can manifest. Yeah. And, I always find that interesting that, that in the Quran, there's, a jinn can't take the form of a wolf. Why? Why pick that? Right? There's something, I mean, look at you get, like I said, Anubis, you get all this stuff. Look at the medieval werewolf trials. Now, people sum that up to the Inquisition. They torture people, they'd say anything, but something initially got people telling tales of shapeshifters and werewolves throughout the Netherlands, Germany, France, Spain, all these places where do you say gypsies were migrating to, probably have spread out quite far. I'm not saying all gypsies are werewolves.
No, but there is a connection there. Yes.
Right. You ever seen the show? Did you ever see the show? I know. I'm the guy. You have all this great arcane historical knowledge. I have all this pulp fiction. You ever see the show Hemlock Grove?
Oh yeah, I've seen 3 or 4 episodes, and then I just don't have time to finish.
I know. This is where I don't get as popular because I don't spend all my time on doing the show. I spend time watching shows with my wife. The Hemlock Grove was awesome because they incorporated so much of this kind of old myth in there. And the werewolf in that show was a gypsy. His family came from gypsies. His grandfather, they had to behead his grandfather when he died. Why? Because they didn't want him to come back. Because he was a werewolf, as like a vampire, which the werewolves, if they don't do this beheading in that Hemlock Grove, they come back as these like kind of vampire werewolves. You go off and like murder people constantly. I love whatever that author was thinking or researching. I love that old kind of traditions, not the Hollywood typical werewolf thing, because I believe there's truth to it. You have so many people telling you they've seen people change into reptilians. They've seen people change into just a dog or a cat. Shape-shifting and changelings and skinwalkers. There's so much of that through all the different cultures, all the different histories of these things interacting with us that we don't understand. And I think there's elements to it that are things manifesting in our reality, people getting glimpses of things that are around us they don't normally see. But I also think some of these are people out there that you think are people, but they're not.
They're not. Not in the sense that we are,
Right.
Yeah, you're right.
And you see some of the when you look at some of the, I hate to say it, serial killer cases. People that got deep into the demonic in their case, or people like Aleister Crowley, the way that they manifest some of the similarities. Now, of course, that's what they say about medieval times, about the witchcraft trial or the werewolf trials, is that they were just serial killers that they made into monsters. They applied that to them. But if you look at some of our serial killers, it's like they are almost, if they weren't caught, they were transforming into something in a sense. The farther they went into the evil.
Well, that was Crowley's whole thing.
Right.
The bestial, or unleash the
bestial.
Turn a beast. What is it Hunter Thompson says when a man makes himself into a beast? What is it? Is it a quote? He ceases to have the pain of being a man.
Man, yes. Yeah. I love Hunter S. Thompson. That's a whole other story.
We could talk about him too. I could talk about any of this stuff. And somebody was telling me the other day, they were like, because I said something about football, and they're like, how can you waste your mind thinking about football? I was like, dude, if I don't think of something other than all this stuff, then I lose my mind. And I told him, I said, I also have a very photographic memory, and it's not like it doesn't work all the time. You have to kind of, zoom in on what you got to do. And that's why I'm able to retell. And sometimes I forget my notes, and I might get a few details maybe every now and then, but that's not normal. But it happens. And I think that there's some people that are just born to do certain things. That's why when I've tried to walk away from this so many times, I end up back in it because something is
pulling me back in.
They keep pulling me back. And so that's it. I mean, there's a handful of people that I listen to at your show, because you're guest. I know a lot of them are really amazing, and you do a good job. And so your show and maybe a handful of others that if I have the time, that's when I'm gonna watch that. I'm not gonna waste my time on a lot of other things because I can't. But if I have the time during, on a Sunday or Saturday, I'll watch football. I watched Texas get their ass whooped yesterday by Georgia. Excuse my language, but it was humiliating. And I had with my cousin, and he was screaming and yelling at the TV, and I was smiling because my wife's always saying, I'm like, look at this. That was awesome because I get to be around somebody who did what I do. And they're like, dude, what the heck? Because I'm sitting there and I'm going I can see everything clearly, right? Well, one of the things that people got to understand is destruction is not necessarily a bad thing. Because in destruction, you see clearly. If you level everything, you can see it clearly. And sometimes old wood just needs to be culled, and it needs to be, we're at that point right now. We're at the tipping point in every facet of our lives, spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally, everywhere. There needs to be the
earth itself.
There has to, for survival's sake, we need a major change.
That's right. And there's life, death, and rebirth. And people don't understand. They like to look at the world through a lens of everything is black and white. There are times when you can absolutely do what is moral and right. That is the most important thing. Always come from that perspective of you're doing the intent. The intent is everything, right? You could save someone's life, but if your intent was to save them because they owed you money, or because, I better help this guy because if I don't, he's going to,
Because you want a favor later.
Yes, exactly. People don't do that. Then they get caught up in the wheel of Dharma because they're trapped because of their karmic debt that they carry over and over and over. It's like credit card. You got to pay it. At some point, we are at a tipping point now where we're in the Kali Yuga. I believe that. And we're at a point where we have to pay that debt. The karmic debt is due. And if we don't pay it, then we just keep going further and further and further. You can look at it economically. I invest in the stock market. I do. And I told my listeners, buy gold. Okay. And then when gold had dipped at one point, this one guy messaged me, and I know him, he's a pretty cool guy, but he was like griping at me saying, whoa, I just lost a bunch of gold. I said, dude, what do? I said, go buy more. Because
it's cheap right now. Go buy it then, right? Because it's going to go right back up.
Yeah. And now it's almost 2,700. And then I told everybody NVIDIA. Well, when NVIDIA lost $207 billion, everybody panicked. They're like, that's the biggest loss ever. You told us to buy NVIDIA. What do we do? And I said, go buy more. Because when you're worth $3.8 trillion, $200 billion is like $200 to us. Who cares? It's like, $200, okay? If you're a millionaire, you don't give a damn if you lose 100,000. It's like, that's not a big deal. That's the same thing for this company. It's bigger than Apple, right? So I told them, go buy more. And of course it went back up. And then I told them some more other companies, TCMS, go check them out, Planetary. But it's very simple. You see the ebb and flow. You're going to win, you're going to lose. And then, of course, in crypto, you have Ethereum, you have Bitcoin, you have Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, whatever, all those different ones. And they are all hitting right now. They're smoking. Boom, 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 boom. But you got to know when to hold them, when to fold them. That's the way this world works. When you stop and you really pay attention, and I know me and Jason, we've had this private conversation. When you look, if you were to walk up to a picture and you just put your face right there, you're like, what is this? Is this round thing? And there's some black hair right here. And then you back up and you're like, oh, there's a leg. Oh, it's a horse. And I was up so close, all I saw was its ass. And so you're just like, and that makes you the dummy because you're like not stepping back and looking at the whole picture as a mosaic. That is tantamount to what we're doing right now with this community. People are like, oh, I'm into the ghost field, and they snub you because, oh, you're into Bigfoot and stuff. Well, I'm into ghosts. I don't do that. Bigfoot, that's all. Then people run around the woods. Then you go to the Bigfoot people like, Bigfoot can't be see-through. He's a physical monkey man, whatever. Then you go to the alien people, and they're like, it's all aliens. This one lady spent 3 hours trying to convince me that what I saw was an alien.
If you go to the Christian community, they're all demons.
They're all demons, right? And if you go to the Muslims, they're all jinn. And then it's a catch-all for that. So then you don't really understand. But in order to get to the heart of the issue, you have to be able to look at everything through that lens of that, that panoramic view, and bringing people together to make them understand, like, this is what we're dealing with. So when you have somebody that comes on the show, and I love the way you do that, the callers at the end. I've done some call-in shows that had some pretty interesting stuff. But, you get people's encounters, and then you're able to diagnose it or dissect it and disseminate the information right there. And you're not going to be exact. Nothing is. We're not perfect beings. But you can literally try to cut through the quick and get to the root of what they could be dealing with. Exactly. And I don't see why that's a problem. But apparently to everybody, they're like, this is mine, a little Smeagol ass. They don't want anybody, you know what I mean? This is my knowledge. My
precious. We're going to go to our last commercial break. We got about a half hour left. You're willing to hang out with us, Josh, and we'll see if we get a couple more phone calls and keep talking here. But we're going to our commercial break. If you're going to call in, wait till we come back from the commercial break. That's when the phone lines will be open with our guest tonight, Josh Turner from Paranormal Round Table, after the short commercial break.
Intercepted the transmission of unknown origin.
Transmission? Out here?
SOS.
Human.
Unknown.
Alien. Certificate X. Exclusive engagement at the Odeon Leicester Square. Now.
Any systematized transmission indicating a possible intelligent origin must be investigated. I will hear it.
In space, no one can hear you scream.
If you are interested in discovering the truth about the paranormal and want to hear from leading researchers in the field, join Justin Brown on his 3 weekly shows named My Paranormal Soapbox, Necromancer Live Show, and the Supernatural Symposium, live on Facebook, YouTube, and InterfaceDeath.net.
This is an APAC studio presentation.
Hi, I'm Barry, owner-operator of Barry's Barometer Barn. Lately, I bet you've been lying awake at night asking yourself, how many barometers do I really need? Well, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we think you need more than one. Otherwise, we're gonna go out of business. Remember, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we don't know the meaning of high-pressure sales. Come on, folks, buy another barometer. I'm trying to put my kids through college, I've got a family to support, and a secret mistress who isn't cheap.
Visit Barry's Barometer Barn, 000 Storm Drive. Come on, folks, buy a barometer. I'm Barry's older brother, Larry, and every time one of you people walk past the store without coming in, Barry beats me.
This has been a presentation from Tim Morgan's APAC Studio. For more almost professional amateur comic studio content, visit the APAC YouTube channel. Search APAC 2002. That's APAC 2002 on YouTube.
When Alex Gardner is asleep, he has an extraordinary gift. The government wants it, the scientists want it, but to keep it may cost him his life. It might be better if Alex didn't sleep at all, but he cannot resist entering the dreamscape. Can you? See Dreamscape in the West End and all over London now. Certificate 15. It takes an extraordinary adventurer to enter the dreamscape.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
You could accept the fact that this city is headed for a disaster of biblical proportion.
What do you mean, biblical?
What he means is Old Testament, Mr. Mayor. Real wrath of God type stuff.
Exactly.
Fire and brimstone coming down from the skies. Rivers and seas boiling.
40 years of darkness, earthquakes, volcanoes.
The dead rising from the grave. Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together. Mass hysteria.
You're listening to the Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419. Or by Skype caller ID jblandoo or jblandparanormalsoup. Soup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight's guest has been the awesome, incredible Josh Turner from Paranormal Round Table. I know I was on Heather Wade's show last Wednesday. We went from a 3-hour show to a 5-hour show. I can see how that's easily done. I have to be up at 6 in the morning, so I can't do a 5-hour show. We only have about 25, 27 minutes left of the show. But if you did want to call in, the phone lines are now back open. You can join this conversation. There's a little bit that we have left with our guest, Josh Turner. So let's go ahead and get back to our guest. Thank you for hanging in here with us, Josh. Like I said, we could talk all night, all this stuff, and that's why it's like I can't just have you on the Halloween show. We got to do our own show because just we could go all night talking about this stuff, honestly. Especially when it gets, like I said, you're my favorite guy to go to when it comes to dogman, werewolves, changelings. That's something lately I've been hugely fascinated by, and like I said, I was on Heather's show. We were talking about this when it comes in terms of demonic possession. Are these people that are the like you were talking about this werewolf cult? I'm very interested in hearing more about people that indwell a spirit to change. I mean, think about what a brouhaha does, or any kind of like the Native American witch doctors that the Navajo called skinwalkers. They're indwelling some kind of spirit to change, to physically change themselves into a different being. This is throughout a lot of different magical practices. It's not just Native American. You go back to the werewolf trials again of the 1500s and all that. They're talking about making deals with the devil.
Yeah.
To be able to have this power, this ability. You talk about the berserkers. There's a lot of this where people indwell something to physically change them, to give them a power.
I mean, and you were talking about serial killers like Peter Straub. I mean, you look at him. I mean, that was obviously, he claimed he was, they said he was a werewolf. And
well, he claimed it. I mean,
been.
since he was 12 years old. But then again, was that under the duress of torture? And that's where the skeptics come in. But in that case, too, I mean, it was reported that witnesses saw him change when he was finally cornered and arrested.
And so many people have come forward, like over the years, with different cases and anecdotes throughout history. One of the interesting things, the Austrian vampire. That's a very interesting case because the Austrian military had just defeated the Ottomans, and they had taken over Serbia, and they were kind of surveying their new territory. And it was 1539, but I might be wrong. It was 1537, 39, something like that. And they were told to, go into these new territories and kind of set up garrisons and just be like, hey, this is now ours. You're under our jurisdiction. And they went into these different places like Sarajevo and whatever. And they told them like, hey, we're now in charge. The Ottomans are gone. We've driven them out. And so what is the problem here? And one of the problems was that the Ottomans, the Turks, were Muslim. And so everything was a jinn. And it was just like, well, that's just how it is. If you have a vampire, well, it's a jinn vampire. You just deal with it, Be Muslim and they won't hurt you. So it's kind of like, like how the communists are. They're like, there's no trouble here. There's no trouble in paradise. This is paradise. Nothing bad can happen. And the Austrians were like, well, a lot of bad's happening. So tell us what's going on, and we'll try to figure it out. Well, one of these small enclaves that they went to, and I can't remember the name of the town. I got to go do some more research on it. But they literally told them, we have a vampire problem here. So these Austrian soldiers, and in particular, there was one who was a colonel. And he went there, and he was like, I need to know what's happening here because I'm getting odd reports. And it became a matter of official doctrine that was handed to the Habsburg empires, princes, kings, whoever. It was in their official courts in Vienna. And so they went in and they were shocked that these people were people were dying. They were being exsanguinated. They couldn't figure it out. And so they were having to kill these people. They were digging them up, and then they would stab them with a stake, and fresh blood, even people who were dead for 2 months, 3 months, fresh blood was coming out of their chest cavities, and it was coming out of their mouths. And this one particular guy who was sent there, and like I said, I'm doing a whole bunch of work, right now, but I'm going to get to this because I want to talk about it on the show. Long story short, because we don't have a lot of time. It's like this is like an hour-long story, but if you
we got a caller on the line I want to get to too.
So what it is just shorten it up. He went away convinced that this was real, and that these people were plagued by a vampire. And like I said, one of the beliefs is that if you're a werewolf and when you die, you become one of these.
Right.
And how you keep your life force is very simple. You drink blood. because that keeps you alive. And so you start to go down the rabbit hole, and then you realize this has been with us for a long time. One of the earliest vampires is Ornius, who was King Solomon's servant's son, was being attacked by a demonic entity who was sucking his blood and killing him. The boy was dying. And so he caught him, and he used a magic ring that was given to him by his God, whoever, if you want to believe it is or not. And that ring he used to enslave the demons. And they, now, of course, the Muslims say it was Allah. The other one, the Jews say it was Yahweh. It just depends. But he gave him this ring, and he was able to subdue them and make them build the temple. But it all started with a vampire.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, yeah. That is one of your earliest tales of a vampire is King Solomon. Mm-hmm. And, when you get into demonic and all that, you generally leads back to King Solomon, a lot of the rituals, and that it's been adopted. Some people say Solomon wasn't real and it's all symbolic. There's somebody or something behind Solomon that was real.
Definitely.
I don't think it was just symbolic. Let's go ahead, because I don't want to run out of time. We do have somebody on the phone line. Who do we got?
Oh, hey, yeah, this is Andres Rosales. Josh, you probably saw me on your live a few times, and I have been watching your show, Jason, a little while.
Oh, thank you for calling in. What was your first name again?
Andres.
Andres? Well, thank you for calling in. Welcome.
All right. I've actually had a few experiences. One of them would obviously be a glimmerman, a shadow man, and what appears to be some kind of spirit that peeked out at me from behind a corner, but the face was messed up in a way. It's like somebody messed up a drawing, and it just peered out. I don't know how to describe it. It's like it was really messed up. You could definitely see eyes and a mouth, but they were pitch black. It's literally as if somebody drew this thing out of a freaking nightmare, if that's the best explanation for it. And this peeked out at me. I never saw the body. It just showed the head and a very tiny part of the neck. And it was just really good, but it definitely got my attention was because I was the only one in the house. My mom and my sister were out, and the moment I saw it, I just froze for like a second, and that's all it took to just vanish. The moment it went away, it took me a few seconds to gather myself. I sprinted toward the room where it was at, and there was nothing there.
How old were you?
Oh, this was, I was little. I remember being in elementary school. That's how young I was.
Kid? Yeah.
Yeah. And it freaked me out a lot.
But you would see it like as a shadow figure at
No,
times?
No, that's the thing. It was not a shadow.
It wasn't.
It had color. It was like a very dark pink mixed with red. And this was in the daytime.
Ooh.
Not at night. This was in the daylight. And I don't know why. Before the encounter actually happened, I don't know why. I just stayed. I just went still. And for some reason, I got like a sense of calmness, almost like the calm before the storm.
Yeah.
And I would look straight towards that hallway. And I was expecting something to show up, and something did. And that freaked me out the rest of the day. And I kept thinking, I still think about it now sometimes.
Yeah, they stay with you. What's your thoughts on this one, Josh? Because I know we don't have a ton of time.
Yeah, well, I think you, Jason, when you were on our show and you talked about the shadow entity, that was, I don't know.
When it showed its face to me, it became a red glow in the shadow, and it was a beast.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the shadow entity and this encounter are two different encounters I'm actually talking about.
Yeah.
This was just what happened today. The Shadow Man encounter, would you like me to explain that one as well or no?
If you can give us like the quick version of it. I hate doing that, but for time's sake.
Yeah,
okay.
Limited with time.
Yeah, okay. Basically, it was during the colder months, and my grandfather lives aside from like one of those small power stations across like a few feet away from his house. I went outside. I was the only one to see this thing. And I looked on top, and there was this figure kneeling on top of the station that I mentioned. And and I was looking at it, and he lives right next door to like a high school parking lot. So at night it lights up. No light hit this thing. I could see everything around it, but I couldn't see behind it. It's like no light hit it. No light hit this thing.
It like absorbed the light.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, I've witnessed. That's very common with these things. Because that's what I saw. Because I'd seen this scene in light at one point when I went up to my friend's doorway and I turned, it was there, and there's plenty of light on the street, but it's like a black hole, a figure that's a black hole sucking in there's no light there, there's nothing, it's just pitch black, even though it should be totally lit up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. The way it was looking at me though, it was like it was studying me, like it was seeing what I would do next, and obviously I was in shock. I didn't do anything. I just turned back inside after a few seconds looking at it, and nobody else saw this. I was the only one outside. Everybody else was inside talking. And the door was wide open. Anybody could have seen it in the same direction, probably seen it, but nobody did. Everybody was too focused on whatever they were doing.
Josh, quick thoughts on this one?
Andres, I think you've told me this story before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did mention it on one of your lives. I wasn't sure if you saw that comment, but that is what I saw. And that power station I mentioned, it literally powers the main street that's near his house. Like, unless that station is out of commission, that main street doesn't get any power.
Yeah, and that's very common too, because these things do run on electromagnetic energy. I mean, it's just the truth.
Yeah. There's definitely a big connection with that. Well, I'm gonna let you go because we're running out of time, and I got other people trying to fit in right before we go. Thank you for calling in.
All right, thank you. Thank you guys for your time, and goodbye.
Goodbye. Yeah. Yeah, if you guys call in and I hang up on you, it's because I got somebody else on the line. Somebody else was trying to call in. You can try calling back in now. Lines are open. You know, see, that's the thing. He had two different experiences, and like you said, I do the same thing when I'm talking to people too, like an actual long interview with somebody on this topic. If I'm getting an experience, I go, okay, what other experiences have you had? What's your first? If you had one, what's the first? You know, let's look at the history of this. It's a little ghost story if you got time. Yes, call in. Who is this? Here, I'll call you.
Florida man says, get a St. Benedict medal. Well, this right here. Keep them with me all the time. I suggest everybody do that.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, yeah, we got about, if you can make it short, we got about 14 minutes.
So I got a quick ghost story. Hi, everybody. This is Hardy. I know Josh knows me. I talked to him before, but I'm going to tell a quick story. So I used to be 22 years old. I went to go visit my friend who lives in Sacramento, and he had an apartment. So we decided to go to Reno, go gamble, and have a good time. But I was completely sober when I got home at 3 o'clock in the morning. So we're sitting down. He had a 1-bedroom apartment that he shared with his girlfriend, and he told me, "Hey, here's a blanket. Here's the couch. Go to sleep." So I laid down on the blanket and the couch, and I started hearing people talking, music playing, and, something going on in the background. So I get up out of my bed, go out there and take a look. And I go outside, where's this coming from? Dead silence. So I go back to sleep again, and I put the blanket on myself again. And again, there's music playing, people talking, and I'm like, what's going on? Where's this party coming from? So I get up again, out of my bed, dead silence, So the third time I did this, as soon as I did it, I saw, music playing, people talking. This happened again. And I was trying to cover my face with a blanket. So as soon as I was doing that, just to silence yourself. So as soon as I did that, I was trying to cover the blankets up. A woman's face comes out of the blanket like thick smoke. It literally looks at me, literally 2 feet from my face, looks away, looks back at me, and just disappears. And I couldn't scream. I couldn't do nothing. I just I tried to scream, but I couldn't say anything or do anything.
You were frozen.
And so frozen, exactly. I didn't know what was going on. So I decided, hey, I could do one of three things. I could go back to my car, go to sleep, go run in his room with his girlfriend and act like a girl, or I could shut up, go to sleep, and if it bothers me, go home. So I decided to just go to sleep, and I slept like a baby the rest of the night for some weird reason. So the next day, I talked to my friend, and like, hey, brother, this is what happened last night. And he told me that in his house, he had 3 different cats. They all went crazy, you know, and he would have the TV turn on and off in the apartment, and then he would have woman's cologne that his girlfriend never wore. So the crazy thing about this story is that I talked to my buddy that we've been known since I was a kid, and he knows the same guy, and he had the same experience when I discussed it with him in a different apartment with him. So the same thing, a lady's face came out that was a woman's face, thick smoke. They described the same experience.
But it was a different apartment.
About a different apartment, but with the same guy.
Same guy. So this isn't the apartment. This is something following him.
Exactly.
Wow.
And the crazy thing was it was scary, but it wasn't scary. When you feel that shock and awe, and but at the same time, after it went away, I felt that at peace, or like at ease where I could sleep. And it was literally 2 feet from my face, where it looked straight at me, turned her head to the side, about 20, 30 degrees, looked back at me, and then just disappeared.
That's incredible, man. Especially the idea that somebody else witnessed this, connected to the same person in 2 different locations. Josh, your thoughts?
I think you've given me this story before, haven't you?
No, Josh, I got a lot of stories from you, a lot of stories that I need to give you. But I was, that's where I actually met you, Jason, about maybe, I would say, 9 months ago when Josh had mentioned you. But I'm lazy, so I never decided to give you the whole.
This is a good one, though, man. It's a really good one.
Yeah, because I got started from a young age, like maybe 5 years old, where I had a near-death experience. I've seen so many crazy things, and
you're like us. You're an experiencer.
Yeah. Get in touch with me because I know you emailed me before, and I can't always keep up because your story sounded familiar, and I get like a lot of different stories. So the email, just email me again, and maybe we can
give that email out for people again.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But it's a great Josh had described you, and one of the things I love about you, Jason, before I go, is just let you know this conversation and topics you have are amazing, and that's what I love about Josh. Let's go beyond what we think about on everyday terms, and let's think about the overall big picture and try to figure out what's going on in this crazy, weird world.
Yeah, we got to connect the dots, and we do it through experiences like yours and sharing them. So thank you so much for calling in.
Yeah, thank you guys. You guys have a wonderful night, and thank you, everybody.
All right, have a good one.
Yeah, good night.
What's the email again for people if they want to email you?
Yeah, it's Josh Turner at PRTpodcast.com. That's Josh Turner at PRTpodcast.com. Send me your stories or send them to Jason, whatever.
Paranormal Soup jbland@gmail.com. But I guarantee I will not retell your story as beautifully as Josh does.
Well, I appreciate you saying
that's why I have the phone lines. I let them come in and we'll talk about it because you do such an amazing job of telling these experiences from other people. Like I will butcher somebody's story. That's how I feel like if I tried to do it. But you do such an amazing job.
You're mesmerizing.
You're mesmerizing. Is exactly it. You guys can find out for yourself. Paranormal Round Table on their YouTube channel. You got so much on there for people to dive into. That's what I love about you.
And easy to follow.
What was that, Jamie?
And easy to follow.
Yeah. Well, I try to be, and it's funny. I mean, I have people who watch the show all the time, and they're like, I don't understand the hate, but I tell them I do, because if you're over the target, you're going to get the hate. I mean, that's just,
and it's a threat to them and their beliefs.
Yeah, and it's hard for people to digest. All of us have had some sort of paradigm shift that probably came at an early age, or maybe in your teens that turned you, into the believer that you are, Jason, with the shadow thing that you saw. It was very profound. If you go back and listen to those episodes, I don't know the exact episode numbers. I'll get them. But Jason, we did like 3 parts. It was like a recording. And then a lot of people liked those episodes. And I know
I forgot we did that as 3 parts because we did talk for like an hour. I forgot about
those were
that.
good. Yeah, and then I came on and I told my story because, of course, what happened to me when I was 15, that just, but it's really profound whenever somebody can back up what you're saying, because you're like, a lot of people keep it in. And then one day they just tell someone and they're like, me too. And, it's like, dude, there's so much suppression, and I've talked to people from overseas and they don't really have, you'd be shocked at how much they don't talk about it. They're not like in the Levant, in the Middle East, or in South America, Europe. They don't talk about this stuff. It's taboo. And if they talk about it,
speak of it.
Yeah.
Well, it's like you're going to draw, it's like Lord Voldemort in Harry Potter. You don't want to say the name out loud or you're going to draw the evil in.
Mm-hmm.
That's inbred in so many different cultures. Some of it is protecting their culture. They don't want to talk about these things with outsiders too.
Yeah.
I get that. It's their traditions and their culture, and they don't want us bastardizing it like, we would do, as Hollywood would do, right? But
I've been lucky in that respect, I guess. I've been able to pierce that with a lot of different cultures.
Because if they hear you as a truth teller. You're just trying to tell the experience. You're not trying to, change it to something else. And that's the thing. We got to share these experiences if we're going to connect these dots. There's a lot
spreading the
people,
missing information.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, there's a ton of, like you said, there's a ton of people out there that never talk about it. I'll play video games online with people, and they'll be in other parts of the world, and they find out what I do, and I'm like, tell me, what's your experience? I even people have worked my store. Their parents, they came from, like, one kid, he came from Lebanon. I talked to him about, he saw flying witches.
Yeah.
This is stuff he would never have told anybody else ever. That's the privilege I feel I have of doing this show. One of the major pluses of it is being open about it, and people know they can come talk to me and tell me these things that they would never tell anybody else. And we got to have these forums for people to do it.
And it's a safe space.
And this is for the paratroopers out there that are listening. I got to tell you, man, if you're not listening to Jason on Sunday nights, I mean, you're missing out, because I probably catch every other show and at least part of it, but I'm already like late and I'm, already kind of.
It's a bad time slot. I self-admit
But
that.
it is, you're so good at what you do as far as getting the guests on, and you are very intelligent, very knowledgeable, and you guys do a good job. And Jamie gets after it. She's busy with like posting all the links and all that. So you have a good thing going. And I just think that you guys should be bigger than you are. I mean, it's a shame, because there's so many people that are just like, they're thirsty. They're hungry for the knowledge, and they don't know where to go, because so much of it's just a bunch of crap. Like 7 true Dogman stories. And it's like, this is like AI generated bull crap, right? These people are
you hear the AI generated voice or the AI generated images.
Yeah.
It's like, there's no human involved in this anymore.
No,
I don't think.
fake subs, fake views, fake everything, fake comments. I mean, fake likes. So if you could do me a favor,
Fake stories.
favor to me, fake AI generated stories. Talk to Jason, like and subscribe to his channel, and show him some love, and show up in his chat, because I'm lurking in his chat quite a bit. Like I'll be in there. I don't always say anything, but I'm watching, or I'll have it in the background playing, because you have some amazing guests, and you do a good job of talking to those guests. It's one thing to it's about closing the deal. Like, you can get a great story and then screw it up. You can get a great guest and screw it up. I mean, it's just, I've seen people do it.
I used to get booked up with guests way farther in advance. I'm not so much anymore, because I've been a lot more picky with guests. I'm trying to find better guests. You've helped me out, recently with some, and keep trying to help me out, because I'm trying to get more guests that aren't trying to, I get selling a book. I have plenty. There's no problem with that. Paul Wallace comes on here. Yeah, he's selling you one of his newest books. But the thing is, it's an amazing book, and it's an amazing topic. That's why I'll bring him on. I don't care about somebody selling their book. And half the time he never mentions this book. He's just talking about the research.
Yeah.
But then I've tried to avoid the more self-help gurus, the people just trying to sell you something for a quick fix that probably isn't, like things like that I used to have it. I'll admit in the past, I just had let anybody come on. I'm not so much. I'm being more picky. I'm trying to get more guests that are really getting in depth and want to have a really good conversation. That's what I want. So thank you for last minute being one of those guys. Since
Well,
I
I mean,
talked to
you gave me like a week, so I mean, it was like I had time to figure it out. But I can tell you right now, and this is not just because you're here, but I'm going to be honest. If it was anybody else, I probably would have been like, "Hey, man, it's I can't do it. I got moving and all this stuff going on." But
I felt bad asking because I know you're moving, but I could really, really want to have the show. So thank you so much.
Dude.
Thank you, Summerside, for another $10 donation. Thank you.
A real quick side note I wanted to go before we go here. I was going to tell you, if anybody's ever interested in learning about history, like Alexander the Great's a very good starting point, because even though there were things that happened before that, but that really does hit home. And if we ever do another show, I'll get more in depth into it, because he believed that he was the son of Ammon, who was the form of Zeus. And it gets really in depth, and it's really neat when you read about it. Yeah, I mean, and then of course they called him the two-horned one, because that was the helmet was the ram horn. And so there was a lot of, and of course that's why we know that he was involved supposedly in the wall, the red wall, because the two-horned one is the one that made the wall. And what were they trying to do? They were trying to keep something out. And there's a lot of different things, like in Iraq, like with the library and the looting of it. I've talked about it on my show. And I had some guys who claimed that they were military guys who claimed that they saw a Stargate. So, very interesting
right there.
stuff.
That I'm already sold on that, man, because I've had other guests that have talked about that same exact subject and what happened in Iraq. Why were we going in for artifacts? What was going on there? Big questions, right? Big questions. That's a whole other show we could do. Like I said, I could talk to you forever, but that is the end of the show. We are ending the night because I got to be up in 6 hours or less.
So if anybody wants to, go over to Abe's show, Abe Seas, Spiritual and Cryptid Encounters. He's the late night guy, but good night.
Thank you, Josh. Paranormal Round Table, Josh Turner. Check him out. I'm sure all you guys already came from Paranormal Round Table anyways, but some of you guys might have not heard him before. If you haven't, boy, what a great channel. You're going to be totally, totally surprised by how much material is there for you to listen to. Plenty there. All right, Josh, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Summerside of Life, for the $20 in total donation tonight. Thank you. You can help out the show by donating on Super Chat for YouTube, Patreon, Jason Bland, Paranormal Soup, or you can find me on PayPal, oojblandoo@yahoo.com is the email for that. Any of that does help pay the bills for the show. Thank you to everybody who shares out the show. Keep telling your friends about Paranormal Soup with the Weird Habits live every Sunday night. And we will be back next Sunday for our 10/27, that Sunday, is our Halloween show. Come join us with Katrina Cooper, our spiritual medium. See you then. Have a great night.